I'll let you know when it connects.
Okay.
It's up now.
All right.
Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome. We're so happy to have you back with us this evening. For those of you who are joining us for the third evening's presentation, and for those of you who are joining us for the first time, happy to have you. You're going to have a tremendously enriching and inspiring evening. I can guarantee you that. So, welcome to the virtual presentation, the Nathan Ebanks Foundation, our virtual parenting summit, and of course, brought to you by the foundation and Raising Special Needs. Let me welcome my co-host and our keynote speaker for today and founder of the Nathan Ebanks Foundation, Mrs. Christine Stapley Banks. Hello, Christine.
Hi, Elaine. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. The roles are reversed today, and I'm very
Well,
happy about that.
yes, I'm absolutely happy to be able to introduce our guests today and to remind our participants and those newly joining us. Well, one of the first things that we've been very excited about is the number of countries that have been
Mhm.
represented at our summit. And last time, I think we counted 23.
Yes.
I'm not sure what we have today. Do you have any insight into that?
I don't. I have not had a chance to look
No
at our
problem.
list,
We'll
but
find
I
that
see
out.
though that
Yes.
or the number of people who have signed up are growing, and
Yes.
that's a good
Yes.
thing. And so I'm sure
Absolutely.
that we've added some new countries since yesterday.
Yes. So, what I want to do, first of all, Christine, is to
Mm-hmm.
remind persons how to participate through the
Sure.
live stream, because
Yes.
that's very important for us. We need your participation and support in particular ways. So, we want you to like and subscribe as you get the notification when the event is ready to start. So, you should be doing that about now because we're on, right? We want you to check your email for your workbook, which would have been provided for you. I'm hoping your workbook is already open, but if you didn't know, once you register for the summit, there is a workbook which really provides you with lots of important information and the introduction to our speakers and really good quality info that you can read and use to support yourself and your family ongoingly. Participants, by sharing in the event chat and sending us an email with your questions. And that's, let me see if I can make it out, raising special needs at gmail.com.
That's
We want you
correct.
to like our Facebook page. We want you to go to that at NEF Jamaica or Raising Special Needs. And we also want you to like our Instagram pages at NEF Jamaica and Raising Special Needs. Now, how you can support. We need you, of course, to buy the books. Christine, where did I put the book? Oh my goodness.
Well, I can
All
hold up
right.
my
I'm
copy. Oh, you
please.
found it?
No, I haven't. It's behind me on the table. And as I said, behind me on the table, I see the Christmas tree. So today is the 2nd of December. We had to have a
Uh,
Christmas tree.
of
So let me
course.
see the book.
All right. So this is
Okay.
my author's copy, but this is pretty much the
Uh-huh.
book. I'm very happy to tell everybody that the cover of the book, because we practice what we preach, the artwork for the book was actually done by a 13-year-old young man with severe cerebral palsy.
Yes.
And his mom put paint in his hands and discovered that he was a young artist. And so his artwork that's on the book cover.
I don't have that book. I have How to Cope Parenting a Child with Special Needs.
It's the
Oh,
same
that's
one.
it.
This is the
Okay.
author's copy.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Now, yesterday when our presenters were speaking, I was sort of thumbing through the book and I was surprised how many things they were talking about were referenced in the book, and that you actually have a catalog at the back
Mhm.
that recommends organizations, recommends strategies, recommends tools, I mean, phenomenal information. So, How to Cope Parenting a Child with Special Needs is a fantastic and very much needed resource for all our participating parents and families. The author, that's her, Christine Stapler Banks, reaches out to all who are struggling with parenting children with special needs. And it helps you to really work not just through the diagnosis, through acceptance, getting past the fears, getting into the actual strategies that you need to apply to support yourself, your family, and your child. So we're asking you to really go to Amazon and purchase a copy, because that also supports the work of the organization. There's a beautiful what you call it again, Christine? A review by Center Green, who was on yesterday, but I'm not gonna go into detail about the review. You were about to say something, Christine.
Yeah, I was just also to say that today one lucky person will walk away with a copy.
Oh, good for them. Good for them.
Yes,
Good for them.
yeah.
So what, one lucky person will get that, but other lucky persons are going to get a free coaching session with me, which
Yes.
Christine didn't ask me anything about. You see, she just, yes, I've been instructed. There's a free coaching session with Chef Patrice, who you would have met on Monday. And there's a free coaching session with Erin Mercer, our speech pathologist, who you will meet later on in our presentation today. Free coaching session with Corinne Holness, who presented on the whole thing of managing your image, managing your hair, managing your network and your net worth. So more about that. And we had a fabulous art therapy session on Monday, and you will also be able to win free art therapy for one child or for a family of 3 to 4 persons. Last thing is a free masterclass of your choosing, courtesy of Full Circle Systems. And when they were presenting that yesterday, it was very clear that this is a really large donation, because that course is a 1-year course, and you get to choose the content that you would most like to participate in. I think that's a very, very exciting offer. So today's presentations, friends and family, will be about emancipating the gift that is your child. And what I'd like us to do, Christine, is to just do a quick recap of Monday and Tuesday, so that we get a sense of how we are setting up for today's content.
Yeah.
So day 1 focused on claiming ourself, our choosing possibility. And I did a bit of that with the keynote speaking, really allowing us to look at ourselves as our primary gift, and the importance of owning the gift, managing the gift, governing the gift, leading the presentation, protection, and support and of that gift, and then really choosing your access to power through the rituals and practices that would support your daily living. The importance of the breath and the importance of really choosing powerfully. And we'll be talking about these things as we go through our content today. I think Corinne presented on that day. That was the day with the art therapy session. I learned a lot about art therapy. I didn't really understand the applications. I hadn't thought of it before. But yesterday, Christine, how was that for you?
Well, yesterday was an emotional day for me, because it really, it took me back to some places that sometimes you have moved away from.
Yes.
But when I saw the chat blowing up with the in the stream, as people were sharing, and people were watching from many different platforms. As a matter of fact, one of our speakers today, Lori Hope, was on the Zoom, on the YouTube channel watching, and it was such a moving, display, but it was so courageous.
Yes.
It was so courageous. And so I observed that after the day had ended, several parenting support groups that I'm part of, it was just blowing up with conversation as people were just downloading and processing. And so for me, I feel like the mission that we wanted to have people knowing that it is okay to talk like that and okay to ask those questions and okay to express how they're feeling. I felt like that was accomplished. So
Yes.
yesterday
Yeah,
was a
I
powerful
think,
day.
yes, I think a very important disclosure in our conversation was that unraveling shame, or letting go of shame, which
Mhm,
seems to be so much part of our culture. And I know that many persons also found the issue of vulnerability, that
mhm.
it's in the place where you feel not good enough, tired, wondering if you will make it. It's when you share the awfulness of that presentation in your spirit, in your soul, in your mind, in your heart. That is what gives people the access to support you.
Yeah,
And I think we need to encourage persons. It's not about telling your business.
it's
It's about
not.
sharing the truth of life
Yes.
so that others can access your deep relationship and your
Mhm.
skills that you have acquired in a difficult situation.
In a difficult situation. This morning I went walking and I was really reflecting on my life and to something that you've said to me over and over again. And it was also said by you on Monday and reinforced in that we have been prepared to do this work from we were born. So I remember when one day you asked me, what did you used to do before Nathan was born? What was your life like then? Because it's almost as if something happened and just cut off your life before the child with the special needs. And then your life becomes so consumed that you forgot all that is available to you and all that you are.
Yes, all of
And
your capacities, all
all
of
of the
your
capacities,
energies,
they
all
get
of your
eclipsed.
skills.
All of
Yes.
it get eclipsed by the needs. And it really does take, and going back to the 5 protective factors that Full Circle, Center
Yes.
Green and Dr. Van Antwerp presented on yesterday, it really takes having people within your social network who are able to have these conversations with you, to really help you to get to a place. And for me, it also begin to bring healing when I started having these conversations. And so it was really great that we were able to have those conversations. And as one person said to me, she has never seen people on a live stream online program sharing like this before. So that also was a great thing.
Absolutely. And that's part of what the Nathan Ebanks Foundation has brought to the table for families and persons with disabilities or other abilities. And it's profoundly important. Are we going to share that video that we had ready, or we're not doing that today? I'm just checking with you.
So let me check with my,
Last year's resource.
Yes, you can go
But what
ahead
I'd
and then
like
we'll share it.
to say is that the foundation is inspired by Nathan Ebanks and the struggles of his family to get the information and support that was required once they had the diagnosis of Nathan's cerebral palsy. And it was established in 2007 to advocate for and to support the inclusion, participation, and empowerment of children with disabilities and special education needs, as well as their families. The work is carried out largely by Christine Stapley Banks with help from friends and volunteers, but people, friends, visitors, guests, we all know this is not a sustainable mode. And so one of the things that we want to take the opportunity while we are gifting this summit, because this summit is top level information, some of the best presenters and persons with skills in their specific and peculiar areas of knowledge and expertise are being gifted free of cost over the last 3 days now, and tomorrow will be our 4th day. The organization is not funded. It provides paid workshops, consulting, speaking, and resource books for sale. But that's not enough money really to fill the gap to do the work that is being done. So even with a 4-day summit like this, there are costs, despite the fact that we are all experiencing the content, the value, the love, the generosity. There is still a behind the scenes cost. And so yesterday, I spoke to you about Giving Tuesday as part of the Thanksgiving period. That Giving Tuesday has evolved into a period of 5 days following Thanksgiving, which ends on the 5-day period, ends on December 3rd. And what we are asking for all persons who are with us at the summit is to consider making a donation to the foundation, to consider buying the books that are available, because the funds from those books, which are designed to help you and your family, also supports the work of the organization. So we invite you to take a look at Amazon for all 4 books: Raising Nathans, Parenting a Child with Disabilities, and what's the third one? How to Cope Parenting a Child. And your mic is
And
off.
the third one is I'm Just Like You, but
Yes.
Different, a story about living with cerebral palsy. It's a children's book that
Yes.
I wrote as a resource when Nathan was in kindergarten and had problems fitting in, making friends because he was different.
Yes.
And I wrote that story to help introduce his disability to his peers. And it became a hit with the children, but it also created him access because the
Yeah.
children recognized why he was different and how they could support him. And so that book was published this past August and
Yeah.
is available.
It's a
And
fabulous book.
and it was also
Very high
supported by
quality.
a pathologist. So we've built in a lot of the factors for early childhood learning and language development in the book.
Yes. So these books they're enjoyable reading, but they are resource tools.
Mm-hmm.
You will find great value when you purchase and read. The other thing is that despite the fact that these presentations are free to the public, I think we can all say that the quality of presenters and content has been extremely high. And we're very grateful for the positive feedback. Now, Christine, I know you have been looking at the feedback, tracing the feedback, and I really would like you to share what you have seen and what our audience is saying.
So everybody, hi, you might recognize that I'm kind of shifting all over the place because in preparation, there's so much work that goes into the summit that in preparation, I had printed out everything and I can't find the printing.
That's okay.
So that's okay.
All right.
But while I just pull up some quotes, I want to share that the video is ready so we can cue that up.
Right. So we want us to take a look at the Nathan Ebanks Resource Fair, which was held in Jamaica 2 years ago and which provided a lot of resource information and practical demonstrations for parents and families with children with disabilities. Let's take a look.
And so if I could now just add in, if I could just add in here.
Yeah,
right. If I could just add in here that that was one of the fair. That one was actually in December last year because we found that like we're experiencing now that in Jamaica, that there were emerging services that the government had started increasing services, but a lot of families didn't know where services were available. So the event, again, was a free event that we did. We staged it as a fun day for the whole family, so the children could be brought out. And we had children were screened. We had speech screening that was done courtesy of Erin Mercer, speech and language pathologist, who's going to speak to us a little later. And we also had occupational screening, and we provided quite a bit of early, what we call screening services, so that families could be referred. And so we're here today on this stream because physical events are no longer possible right now. But I just also wanted to just share that Sasha Hill, who was on, and I think she's waiting in the guest wings to come back on. She's part of a super parent group, and she wrote to say, again, I want to say a big thank you to Christine Stapley Banks for affording us this avenue and opportunity to connect and understand and feel a part of a great big community, to understand that we are not alone and that there is a wealth of support and resources out there just waiting for us to tap into. I feel so empowered and full of energy and life after being here today, even after a long and tiring day at work. It is such an awesome blessing to be able to turn the energy we have of looking at the things that are not going well and turn them into something beautiful by being able to see awesomeness and greatness in our little butterflies.
Wow. Wow. Well, thanks, Sasha. Thank her very much for that. And I'm looking at our time, Christine, and I'm making sure that we don't overrun our times today. And I'm seeing that really we need to be getting into our keynote conversation. And I think we all know that our presenter for today will be our founder of the Nathan Ebanks Foundation. I was wondering, did you want to have Beverly share before we actually start?
Yes.
We have been talking about persons who have been sending in feedback, but a friend of ours, new made friend from the Caribbean, she has been quite overwhelmed in a positive way and wanted to share what difference has been brought for her. Beverly?
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you all so much. It has been a positive emotional roller coaster. And I like the song of Michael Jackson where he says, I'm talking to the man in the mirror. And these 2 days has been really a wonderful experience for me. And every information that I have received, I've had the opportunity to put it in practice. And even like yesterday when we talk about being vulnerable, which is something I had a really hard time. I'm still struggling with it. I kind of choose who to disclose to, but because again of shame and not wanting, because people see you and they expect you to portray they think you're so strong, and then you're not supposed to. You don't want people to know your weakness because you're afraid that they will walk away from you.
Yes.
And especially when it comes to my children, I've always wanted to ensure that once they call on me, I can give it to them. But I've also realized that sometimes I put myself under unnecessary pressure, and I have to let them know when mommy can't do it.
Yes.
And then this morning, my daughter called and she was, Mommy, I need you to do a miracle for me. And I'm like, what's that? And when she told me, I got up this morning praying about another situation that I have to deal with my child, another one. But I was not ashamed to tell her, you know what, Mommy just really cannot do it. This is where I am at. This is what I have spent, and I really cannot do it. And I didn't feel like a failure that I could not help my child because I was vulnerable enough to tell her, Mommy just can't do it.
Right.
We're gonna have to see how else we can do it, but I just cannot do it.
Yeah.
And then I left home and I was walking down and I'm saying, but why is it everybody thinks like nobody's actually asking me, how can I help you? Why does everybody think I have it all together? And I'm saying, Lord, show me what is it I am doing that makes people think that I have it all together, that I do not need help. And so a friend of mine reached out to us to ask me, normally they would say, how are you? But they said, how are you today? And I'm like, okay, better than yesterday. And I thought the conversation was going to stay there. The person was like meaning. I'm like, well, I got up a little bit more motivated and energized.
Yes, yes.
And then the conversation went on. No, normally this is a conversation that doesn't go on with that particular person. Meaning, I'm like, I'm just dealing with some personal issues that have had me overwhelmed and weighed down. What personal issues? No, that was the block. I'm like, okay, do I tell you what personal issues? But if I tell you what personal issues, you're gonna think less of me. I start typing, I erase, I type because I wanted to make sure I put it in a very nice way. But eventually I'm like, you know what? Let me just say what's really bothering me.
So
But then,
really, Beverly, not to cut you, but I'm marking time. I'm hearing you say that you have been given access to being open, vulnerable, sharing,
oh yes,
contributing, and free.
yes.
So on that note, I'm gonna get into the introduction for
Thank
Christine
you
and
very
ask
much.
you to continue sharing
No
and
problem.
continue the participation. So today we're very happy to have our keynote address from our founder of the Nathan Ebanks Foundation and Raising Special Needs. Christine is an author of 4 books, all designed to support parents who need to learn about managing their life with children with disabilities. In a former life, Christine was actually an A1 marketing executive marketing specialist for one of the large corporate firms in the Caribbean. And she shifted into the work with disabilities after the birth of her son, Nathan Ebanks. And we're all happy for that because all our lives are being contributed to in a very powerful way. I'm not going to do a long and lengthy introduction. I just want to welcome my friend, the author, the founder, and the promoter of this parenting summit, which is bringing so much to so many of us, as she presents her keynote presentation for today, Embracing the Gift That Is Your Child. Christine Stapley Banks.
Thank you so much for that, Elaine. Welcome again, everyone. And I just want to welcome especially to the inner meeting, Beverly LeBlanc. She had just dropped in and then started speaking. Debbie Austin from Melange Magazine. Debbie is one of those champions for individuals with disabilities to ensure that our stories are carried. And so we want to thank you. She was on the stream yesterday and shared how she was touched, moved, and inspired by the conversation. So I want to welcome you. I want to welcome back Sasha Hill. And we have a couple of other parents who are going to be joining us in the inner stream. And so I want to start with a reflection out of my book, How to Cope. It starts as this: as parents of children with special needs, we don't have the power to make life fair, but we do have the power to make life joyful. And that's the first thing that I wrote in that book, because a lot of times the gift that is in your child is not revealed in the beginning. It is through the journey, and it is through taking time to reflect that you are able to see that gift. And so I'm going to take you up close to another quote that I coined this morning when I was working. Next slide, please. Sometimes in order to see, you have to come close. Sometimes in order to see, you have to step back. The distinction lies in knowing which is required in the moment. As I thought about what I wanted to share with you today in this short time that would leave an impact and would help you also to see that my story is your story, and that what is occurring today through what I am doing came about because of the gift that my son released in me and in himself and into the world. Next slide, please. So this morning I went walking, and I took this picture. Next slide. That's the same space. I stepped back. So the first picture I took, I was right up to where it was, and then I stepped back. Next slide, please. Step back last month, that's the same space. But we're in a space where things are changing. And so I'm going to take you up a little close right now in order to share with you. And I know for many of us as families and mothers in particular who has lived this journey, that it might be a little jarring, but it is a necessary part of the story, because if we're not able to embrace the entire story, that is our child and our child's life, then it becomes difficult for us to see other parts of it. And so next slide, please. Keep going. When I was 5 months pregnant, Nathan was diagnosed while he was still in me with congenital diaphragmatic hernia. And I wanted to show this diagram because to the left of the screen, that's a perfect formation. To the other side of the screen, you will see that what looks like the intestines has gone through the chest cavity and is now compressing the lung. So if it wasn't picked up when I was pregnant, he would have died at birth. And so Nathan was born. And when you have given birth to a child, this child was part of you on the inside. When the child comes out, one of the first acts of bond is having the child put in your hands. That never happened with us because his case was so critical that once he was born, a team of specialists rushed him off. And the next time I saw him was 24 hours later, and this was a picture I saw. That's the first and only time in my life I almost passed out because I had no idea what I was seeing. And so he was like this for almost 20 days of the 24 days he was in the hospital. And we call it touch and go because we never knew if he would live or if he would die. I developed what was called eclampsia, which I learned about after the fact, which again, I could have died as a part of the process because of everything that was going on. In none of this instance did anyone who attended to him or even my doctor thought of my health state, my mental health, and what I needed in the moment. The only thing I heard, this baby is critical, this baby is going to die, we don't know if he's going to live. And as a result, it put me in such a state that the baby was missing. All I saw were the instances, the hospitalization, the sickness, all of that. And so what should have been a beautiful moment became a moment filled with tragedy. Next slide, please. I saw this quote that really stood out for me. Since the day you were born until I draw my last breath, all I am is yours. I love you. And that was a mother speaking to a child. And so to the left of the screen, that was the first time I held my baby in my hands, and he was 21 days old. To the right of the screen, that's when he went home and his siblings held him for the first time. Because thankfully, when we were being discharged from the hospital, a matron who had a lot of years of experience said to me, the greatest gift you have given your child is a gift of sibling. When you go home, he's going to be ill for a while, but I want for you to know it is okay. Teach his siblings how to look after him so that they will become a part of his life. Best decision we ever had. And so development started. And he was very sick for a while because he had a gaping womb. He had surgery at 2 days old. And he was not developing. And yesterday I heard parents talking about, doctors telling you that nothing is wrong and it's in your mind. Yes, that happened. They tell you to go home and watch it and to so on and so forth. What made the difference for Nathan was because I kept insisting there is something that is wrong with his development. He is not doing the similar things that his siblings does. And I do understand that children develop differently, but Nathan is now almost 6 months old and he can't sit unsupported. He can't hold down food. And it was through that insistence that we were referred to a neurologist, and he was diagnosed with cerebral palsy when he was 9 months old. Next slide, please. So that was me and him shortly after the diagnosis. And I had no idea what any of that meant because all we were given was a diagnosis. So for a long time, I thought he was going to die. I thought it was a disease. I had many misnotions about what it was that I thought I was seeing concerning him. And then things begin to settle in. The smiles begin to leave. The family, I just was not available to my family. If you look in my eyes, there's no smile. Things began to shift when the reality of having this child with no information, not knowing what to do, the fears, the staying up at nights, not to mention all of the labor that it took in caring for him took in place. And so that is when I began to realize that we needed to hear from another set of voice. Next slide, please. Next slide. So I started on the treadmill of therapies. We fundraised, we took him to different facilities. And at the time, I still saw his disability or his condition as something that needed to be fixed. And I choke up when I look at this particular slide because look at his face. He was not happy, but I couldn't see that because I thought I was doing the best thing for him because he was presented to me as a child who was broken and who needed to be fixed. Next slide, please. So I have a friend, and yesterday we talked about in the 5 protective factors, we talk about who is in your social connection. I had a friend, because she's no longer with us. She called me one day and she said to me, "What is Nathan doing?" And I launched into the therapy not working, and I'm going to have to fundraise again, and I don't know what I'm going to. And she said, hold up. What is your son doing? And I didn't understand the question. And I asked her, whatever do you mean? And she said to me, what does he like to do? And I thought about it and I didn't know. And she asked me, what's his favorite toy? And I thought about it and I didn't know. And she asked me, what's his favorite color? And she went on, what does he do with you, the daddy, with his siblings? And I did not know because the specialness of the needs had eclipsed the vision of my son. And so he was obscure behind all of that. And so she said to me, lady, have you met your son? She said, go home. The eyes are the windows to the soul. Go look in your son's face and meet him. And this was him. And I went home and he had on it in his little stroller. And I just cupped his face in my hands. And I looked deep into his eyes. And I don't know how long we were looking at each other. But suddenly I saw his spirit. And his spirit was alive. It was vibrant. I began to notice that he had these beautiful brown eyes. I began to notice these long, luxurious eyelashes, that he had this perfect brow, beautiful complexion. And all of a sudden, both of us started laughing together. And I said to him, hi, hon, I'm your mom. And that was the first day I met my son. And he was 2.5 years old. So one of the platforms I stand on as a parent and as an advocate is people first language. People first language is where you put the person before the disability. When we say the autistic child, we hear autistic. When we say the disabled child, we hear the dis, not the able. And so I had to transform my thinking around how I saw my child. And I didn't know how to do that. So I'm a woman of faith. And I went on my knees and I said, Lord, you have to teach me to see him through your lens. Help me to see him as you see him. And suddenly, my child was revealed. And I began to notice this beautiful smile. We call it the $1 million smile. Nathan is 16, just started a new school system. And every day I talk to a teacher, they're talking about his smile. I began to notice the playfulness in his eyes, that they twinkle. I began to notice how that he's troublesome, that he gets into trouble without you realizing it. All of a sudden, the child was revealed. And I then made a decision that I was going to present to the world who my child was. And so when people would see me and ask me, how is your son? Meaning, is he walking or talking? I begin to say, well, you know, he picked up a ball yesterday and threw it, even though, and people would say, yes, but is he walking? But I had to each time rein them in because I learned how to celebrate the small things. And the more small things I celebrate was the more I came to realize that there were more things that were going right for him than the things that were not. Next slide, please. And so Nathan began to just truly blossom. Once our vision of him, or my vision of him, shifted, I could see the growth. I saw the joy. I started, as one therapist said to me, just throw everything at him and see whichever land. So he was swimming. The top picture to the right, that was a wheelchair race he was in at school. He just really began to blossom. And as he blossomed, I grew. And as I grew, I began to learn to have the joy. I began to see the joy of having my child. Next slide, please. The outcome from my acceptance and my family's acceptance and projecting it back to the world was that the world accepted him. People took their cue from us. And as a result, after a while, when you see people, it was no longer, is he walking, talking, but it was, what is he up to now? Next slide, please. So today I want to share with you that as you journey on your path, wherever you are, I am not sharing this for you to feel guilty, because as was shared well yesterday, the disability that your child have is not your fault. It's not our fault. The way we initially view our children, really not our fault either. It is how the children were presented to us, and us not knowing accept, because you believe in the professionals, you believe in the people who you believe are more informed about the process than you. And so I had to learn to look deeper than what he couldn't do to see what he could do. So despite the diagnosis of your child is a child first. And he or she has many unique strengths, gifting, talents, and ability, trying to show you. So one of the things with cerebral palsy is a motor disability. So it's difficult for him to coordinate. So when I get a call from school that Nathan had pinched a child, I was like, yes, oh, he shouldn't have done that, but yes. And the other gift of siblings is that when he pinched them, they pinch him back. So he learned that there was nothing special about him. And so the more you are intentional in looking for these milestones, is the more you'll find them. Because remember the old adage, whatever you look for, you will find. Next slide, please. Some tools were shared this week that I want to just leave and reiterate as a deposit in my journey, my story. That the shift for your son and your family, or your daughter and your family, will come from you. Don't look to anybody else to do that for you. You are uniquely prepared to raise your child. And you are uniquely prepared to have been gifted with your child. Elaine shared on Monday about leading self and claiming your possibility. I had to get to that place, but I couldn't do it alone. So I had to do that with the help of my social community. I had to reclaim my family. And the 5 protective factors that we learned about yesterday came into being. I had to process my emotions. So when you read, whether it is Raising Nathan Every Life as a Story, or you read How to Cope Parenting a Child with Disabilities, the emotions are raw. Because when I was looking for answers, all I found were beautifully packaged stories that did not mirror my experience. And I walked away feeling that something was wrong with me, that I wasn't feeling that way. Knowledge of parenting and child development. I walk into a setting, and whether you're a special educator, an occupational therapist, a speech therapist, whoever you are, I am equipped to have a conversation with you. And if I'm not sure, I again step back into my social network of connectors, and you've met many of them this week, to ask, what should I do and how do I have this conversation? Social connection, I talk about that. Concrete support. You cannot do it alone. We've been reiterating this week, or reiterating, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a larger village when the child has a special needs. and parenting resilience. Those are key to helping you move past the diagnosis to begin to truly enjoy and embrace the gift. Next slide, please. So I want you to know that your child and your family's story have power. Create a storybook. And for those who are interested, there is actually a document I can share with you to help you to do that. Begin to look for the joys. Look at the special features of your child. Practice finding the joy in sharing your stories. Don't focus your stories on the nots. Focus your stories on the whats. What is he doing now? Oh, he's spitting at people. Really? Yes. Well, that's great because he's learning to, which is a big skill that he has developed. Begin to see all of who your child is and not just what your child is not able to do. Next slide, please. Involve your child in life. We talked yesterday about a lot of people will hide away their children. When I started sharing my story with others, people I've known for years said to me they have a brother, a sister, some of them a child with special needs, and I never knew that. So immerse your child into your life. I tell people if you invite us somewhere and it is not accessible, we're not coming because we come as a package deal. Our family motto is we all sink or we all swim, but none gets left behind. Next slide, please. So I leave you with a picture of my beautiful son trying to get out of using a communication device because he wanted to play a game while we were teaching him to communicate. Every day I look at him, my heart sings with joy. I love him just the way he is. And if he were any other way, I would know what to do with him. Because all that he is, ability and disability, makes him the perfect gift. And as his name says, Nathan, which means gift from God.
And that is the story. Thank you so much, Christine. Powerfully shared, really touching, really moving, and so meaningful.
Yes.
So we're really hoping that all the persons who are present with us this evening, well, I don't have to hope. I know we are all touched, moved, and inspired. And we see the possibility for us to see differently, feel differently, do differently, and live differently. What a glorious opportunity.
Thank you.
I don't have access to the chats. I saw Sasha Hill sharing about how meaningful her access to the Nathan Ebanks Foundation and to you has been. But I'm also seeing Melange. Oh, she is the magazine lady. I almost thought that was your name, my sister. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So what I'm hoping to do, Christine, is that as persons respond, you are able to see in the chat. I'm not
Yes.
seeing much of it.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to share some of the
Right.
responses that you're seeing.
So Lenora says, you are uniquely prepared to care for your child. I've learned this and appreciate it now more than ever. I was built resilient to birth an exceptional child. Thank you for that. Samoya says, I'm definitely interested in, I'm not sure, Samoya, you have to tell us which documentary. Faithlyn says, you see, there is power in the name. And so those are some of, so Faith, that was me when the school told me that my son pee in the grass. And I'm like, yes, at least he didn't pee on himself. Powerful,
A sense
powerful.
of humor is so important, isn't it?
It is,
And
it
so
is.
what a powerful tool.
Yes.
So again, I'm looking at my time. I'm wondering if any of the persons in our chat room would like to say anything before I introduce the rest of our agenda for today and thank Christine for a truly inspiring address. Gwendolyn, Beverly, Melange, any comments or should I move on?
Christine, I really like that what you said. And one of the things you said is that when you accept your child, people will accept your child. And this is so powerful because a lot of times parents look for society to accept their child, but they treat their child so differently. You
Yes.
know, the talking tongue, and you can see which child has the disability and which child doesn't have the disability.
Yeah.
So this is so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I wanted to do, Melange, were you about to say something? I'm trying to read your signals.
I just wanted
There
to,
is,
yes, thank you very much. And thank you very much for having me here. I just wanted to say how inspired I feel whenever I listen to Christine and her story, and how her story empowers and encourages other parents who are going through similar situations with their children. It is always, it always causes me to reflect on how powerful a parent's love is,
yes.
and the importance too on community and support
Yeah.
for parents with children with special needs, how important that is. And also too, it also makes me think on how isolated some parents can feel
Mm-hmm.
Very
because of
much.
their situation.
Mhm.
So once again, Christine, I really do applaud you
Thank
and
you.
your foundation for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
But again, as Melange's representative, do want to let everyone know that if at any time you have anything at all that you would like to share, you can reach me through Christine, and I would love to tell your story. So once again, thank you for having me here.
Yes,
Thank you
thank you
so
so
much.
much. And that's Melange Magazine.
Right. Can I jump right in? So what that means to people who are listening in on the stream, to our audience or participants, is that Melange will carry your story. They will interview you and they will put your story in the magazine. And I want to let you know that being able to tell your story over and over again is part of the healing process. And what it did for me was help me to see a deeper purpose in the why. Somebody asked yesterday in the stream, why was my child born this way? What causes it? We don't know. But what we do know is that your child is a child of purpose and of destiny. And being able for me to do this kind of work, every time I do it, and every time somebody is impacted and touched, I feel that my son is walking in his purpose in the earth. So I encourage you, reach out to us so that we can get you connected so that your story too can be shared.
Absolutely. And we want to just remind persons again about the process that we are engaged in, which is a unique one of sharing abilities, sharing knowledge, sharing wisdom. And so on this summit over the 4 days, you have had, are having, and will have access to some of the top specialists in their fields. And one of the ways that we would like you to give back, as all of these persons have joined us and presented to you free of cost. So we're really looking forward to your support where you know of organizations or educational facilities or conferences or seminars that are in need of persons with the expertise in their areas to share the skills and the knowledge. We are inviting you to pass on the information because you will have met them at the summit. Please pass on the information and refer them to your organizations and your communities. As we support each other, we build each other, and we give access to the community, expanding and growing in knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. So we're really asking you to live in the principle of not just giving Tuesday, but looking each day for what you can do to contribute and to give back in any way possible. So I wanted to take the opportunity as well to share with you the rest of our agenda for today. Coming up in a little while, we're going to have a presentation called The Power of Play, and that will be presented by Erin Mercer, MBA, MA, CCC, SLP. Boy, I don't know what all of that means, but she's a speech language pathologist and a fabulous, loving, caring individual. She's going to be presenting many instructional and informative techniques for us. Erin received her master's degree in speech and language pathology from California State University and her MBA from Ohio University. She has been serving individuals of all ages and diagnoses now for more than 12 years. And she has been of integral support to the Nathan Ebanks Foundation in the presentation that the foundation has made several conferences and seminars in Kingston and island-wide in Jamaica. Erin currently provides consultative services and seminars, partnering with therapists, nonprofit organizations, caregivers, and others who seek strategies and support to further the communication skills of the individuals they work with. Erin, you ready to go, or should I tell them the rest of today's? Okay.
If you want to, you can tell the rest of the agenda.
Okay, I'll do that. So
And then after Elaine, I have something that I have to say about Erin before
say
she
it now. Say it now.
So when we talk about, and I'm going back again to the 5 protective factors yesterday, because one of the things we do and we encourage is whatever we learn, we put into practice. And Erin, a part of the role of a speech and language pathologist is to also help with behaviors. We've heard yesterday several presenters, including Dr. Heps, talk about how the behavior is a language, and that a lot of times we focus on the behavior, not what is communicating. So recently, I had a meltdown moment, and I'm going to tell this story. I had a meltdown moment with Nathan, where Nathan was watching a particular program on YouTube, and YouTube channel went down globally. Whatever was going on with him was such that he was having none of that. So he threw one of the deepest, largest, widest tantrum we've ever seen, began to kick the floor, stomp the wall, and let me talk for me, was focused on the behavior and trying to calm him down, especially here in the States, where I didn't want anybody to think he was being abused. And so we were trying to talk him through it, and he was having none of that. So we decided to lift him, move into his room. It took 3 of us. But as I looked in his face as he was moving, I saw the fear, I saw the frustration, but I didn't know what to do with that. So we took him to his room, and I sat on his bed beside him, and he continued. Erin called me because we were working on something together, and she heard him in the background. She said, "What's going on with Nathan?" And I said, "Boy, he's having a meltdown." And I wanted to just end the call so I could attend to that. And she said to me, "Is he someplace safe?" I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Is he where he can't harm himself?" I said, "Yes, he's on his bed and he's safe." She said, "Well, leave him there and move on and do something else. Because as long as you are looking on him, you are feeding that behavior." I didn't know that. So I took my eyes off of him, and she continued the conversation, just talking me through stuff to kind of distract me from not just wanting to respond. Eventually, Nathan started calming down. And then Daddy opened the door to say, "Why are you making that noise?" And the volume went back up. He calmed down again. His brother came and said, "Nathan, you need to," and then the volume went back up. So I began to see the relationship between the attention and the behavior. Erin stayed on the phone with me, and she walked me through. So I said to Nathan, "When you are calm and you're ready to have a conversation with me, he had gone on the floor. You can roll over to where I am and I'll talk to you." And when he saw he wasn't getting my attention, eventually he calmed down and he came over. And I said to him, "Do you understand why you're in the room?" And he said, "No." And I talked to him about his behavior. And I said, "No, it's 9 o'clock, your bedtime is 9:30, and I understand the channel is back up. So I'm giving you a choice. 30 minutes to go watch TV and then come back in, or you stay in here." He didn't want to accept it. So I told him the other alternative is to stay here and go to bed. So he decided that he would do the 30 minutes, and we shook on it. he went out and he watched TV. And when the timer went off at 30 minutes, he touched Daddy and told him it's time to go. That has been over a month ago, Erin, and we have not had another meltdown. So when we talk about having that connection and that support in your community, it could be with the very therapist who is working with your son or daughter, or the teacher who is working with your son. And so I just want to publicly thank Erin for being in my social connection village. And I just had to share that amazing story.
Thank you, Christine. It's a reality check. And I'm sure many persons on the summit this evening have had similar experiences without the support of someone in their community to give the sound advice you got right in the moment. And that's the key.
Yeah.
That's the key. So we look forward to Erin's presentation in a short while, but she will be followed later on this evening by Jane, I'm about to say, hold on a second, by Jane Metz. And is the last name Missoril? How do you pronounce that name, Christine? I'm sorry, I didn't check with you.
So Jane won't be here today. So Erin will be carrying the
Erin
presentation.
is carrying the presentation. Oh, yes. Okay. But the content will be shared. Okay. Thank you. So later on in our evening, we will have Lorraine Hope, who is Garden for Hope. And she is an education veteran with years of experience in general and special education, classroom, and school administration. And while in her tenure, she spent time working with children with disabilities in what is now called horticultural therapy. She will tell us more about that in her presentation. I certainly, as a gardener, look forward to that. She founded Garden for Hope on the mission to bring the joy, fellowship, and therapeutic benefits of gardening to persons with disabilities and the homebound, and or as well those who have a disabling condition, to enjoy a healthy, home-based recreational activity that promotes physical and emotional well-being. In addition to being a relaxing pastime, gardening also provides many therapeutic benefits, such as strengthening the hands and arm muscles, improving coordination and cognitive abilities, and of course, providing great stress relief. So those are the presentations that we have lined up for you today. We will be announcing our winners after all of that and presenting our prizes. But ready or not, Erin, here I come. So we look forward to your presentation right now on the power of play. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Elaine. I appreciate it. And thank you, Christine, for having me, and for everybody else who is on this call and live stream. I want this to be more of a conversation, actually. So my presentation is really more of a guide. And you had mentioned Jane Metz. She is actually an occupational therapist that I had worked closely with in the past. And we do a lot of overlap in terms of our therapy and how we approach children and working with them in their different needs. As a lot of our expertise from occupational therapy and speech pathology, they actually, in some areas, do overlap quite nicely. So let me kick off this conversation that we're going to have with this. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I found this statement, and I think it really encompasses nicely really what games do for us, what play does for us. And this comes from a fellow speech pathologist. Her name is Jana Hopper. And why reinvent the wheel when she has created something so nicely? But really, play and games in general, they create a meaningful context for language. Can you, are you able to see this?
What I'm going to suggest is that you click into full screen so that we don't actually, right, great.
There we go.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yes, great.
Great. So games, play in general, it's a meaningful context for the children that we play with, that we work with, for language, not just for language, but for behavior, for social language. How do you interact with other people appropriately? That's work for children. And I think as adults, we sometimes discount play as something that children are working at. So with play, you can practice on articulation, you can practice following directions, problem solving, answering questions, memory, sportsmanship, attention, all of those things come into play. So I have a question then for this group here of what kind of games do your children play? What do you do to play with your children? Christine, what do you do to play with Nathan? You had told me before about, being out on the lawn and you're looking at different leaves and, it's a time of relaxation, but at the same time, you're doing something that's meaningful and it's enjoyable. It's like a play context. So Christine, why don't you tell us a little?
Well, yes. So one of the ways that we play with Nathan, or I play with Nathan, during the lockdown, we recognized that he was indoors all the time and that he wasn't getting any time outdoors. And so I started taking him out and he didn't want to go. And so we kind of made it a little fun where we look for leaves and shapes of leaves. And, there are some days when we were outdoors and he loves to touch the tablet and do selfies, and we do those and post them. And we were looking at a caterpillar on the screen once, and I asked him to look to see if he could see any around, and he saw one and just kind of wanted to go. So we just, just involve his environment with him in the things that he does. And before we knew it, we had surpassed the time that we needed to be outside with him. So that's one of the activities we do.
That's great. And in that, you can work on following directions. You're attending to that same activity at the same time. So you're working on that attention. You're expanding his language of what he understands about caterpillars and the environment around him. And you're reducing stress at the same time because it is an enjoyable activity for him. So that's fantastic. In no matter what it is that we do, whether it's play or anything, the main thing that I think is really, really important for parents, for caregivers, for anybody is be intentional with the activities that you're using. Be intentional with the games, the goal of your game. What's the goal of the book? Is the goal of the book to just read, which is fine. Is the goal of the book to be able to summarize the different paragraphs? That's a different task. So have an intention for the activities that you use. So as a parent, then where would you start? I feel like I have to keep moving these around. I would say start with your child's current interests and expand on that. We want to gain the buy-in from our children. And to do that, we use what it is that they're interested in. I always advocate for play with physical objects or physical games over a screen. Screen time teaches a different set of skills, and play with objects, with kitchen sets, with pretend clothes, dress up, all of that gives a different dynamic to how they're expanding their language, how they're playing, and how they're interacting with other people. And no matter what it is that you do, of course, just be fully present and have fun. Children can sense when you're not enjoying the task. If you're not enjoying the task, then they're not going to enjoy the task. And I learned that really early on when I was doing therapy of if I'm bored with it, the children know exactly that I'm bored with it. So they're bored with it too. But if I'm having fun with it, no matter what the activity is, even if it doesn't necessarily interest them all that much, they will gain more attention to that because I'm having fun in that activity. So let's keep going. In anything in play, you can also incorporate functional skills, fine motor skills, activities of daily living. We use a lot of activities of daily living to promote and teach and reinforce language skills. So a lot of the older children that I work with, we use activities like cooking, like science experiments, like doing laundry, doing dishes, anything like that, brushing your teeth. Those are things that we also use to teach language, and we can make it fun. So in this, the power of play really is, it's anything that you use that is enjoyable, really, for the children that we're working with. With Jane, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. Some of the activities and games that I really do enjoy, and you don't really need any sort of manipulatives for these. I mean, I Spy, you can do that in a car, you can do that walking down the street, you can do that at home, you can do that anywhere. You can vary what I Spy looks like. So I can make it a scavenger hunt. I can make it just on a board itself that they sit at a tabletop to do. But you can do a lot of different things with this. And I think, Christine, you as well have played I Spy or variations of it with Nathan too.
Yes, I have, and he actually loves it. And a lot of times as well, we work on is him moving with it, because one of the things I learned from you, Erin, is about being intentional with play. And so if I realize he's sitting down for too long and we want to get him on the floor, then we give him opportunities to go look for things and to bring them back. And he loves that.
That's great. And in that, you're working then on his fine motor skills, his gross motor skills, his attention, vocabulary, answering questions through that. There's so many different areas that you can target with just that one activity of I Spy. Another game that I really like is Simon Says. It's following directions. It's great for younger kids, but you can also expand upon this game of, you can make it a short direction, or you can make it a longer direction for them, depending on how challenging you want to make this. But this also gets them up and moving, and they're playing. You know, you can play in a group setting. You can do this individually. Not to promote, commercial products out there, but there is a game, a Dr. Seuss game that I really like, because it's very much the combination of like an I Spy with Simon Says with Twister, and you have them do these different things and point out these different with their different parts of their body, and it's kind of fun. It's a Dr. Seuss game. I also really like cooking or science experiments. I either do one or the other in a therapy session. But with cooking, they learn different vocabulary. They then learn how to sequence the steps to go in order, and then they learn to follow directions as well. So it's a very nice activity for them to do. And then matching. Matching, you can use any set of cards as long as you have at least two of the same card that they can be finding together. It's a great activity to use. In the upcoming examples, Jane and I were working with one of her sons to give examples of sequencing, of matching, and of activity of daily living. So brushing your teeth is one. Do you have any questions or anything so far, Christine or others? Christine, I think you're on mute.
Yes, I'm checking in with the audience to see what. Shakira says, hi, Erin.
Hi, Shakira.
So,
if I may jump in here, Christine, yesterday, I think one of our presenters spoke about, really getting to know your child. I think one of the things I'm learning is that when you are dealing with a child with a disability, sometimes you make up a story about what the child can't do, rather than be present to what abilities the child has. So the notion of a child with a disability having a current interest for many people is novel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'd like you to drill into that a little bit. What do you mean by that? Because there are different abilities and different disabilities. But I think many parents who have children that have other abilities or disabilities often are not present to the capacities that the child has.
Some of the children that I do work with, they get fixated on certain things like the wheels on a particular car or the closing of a door because they like the sound, or they're fascinated by the hinges, or running their hands against the air vent because when you do that, it makes a certain sound.
Mm-hmm.
I use that to my advantage. So I'll start there. That's fine. We can use the air vent to make a certain sound. But if my goal with that activity is for him to tell me what it is that he wants to do, I might do that in a picture choice format. Then this goes in an entirely different direction outside of play itself, but it's giving them the choice too. So let's say I have a picture of the air vent and picture of something he totally does not like. Might put that on a board. Before he can run his fingers up and down, he's got to tell me, then communicate, what does he want to do? I know he wants to run his fingers up and down the air vent. I might sit in front of it and have him choose first, and I help with that. We can do a hand over hand. We can do some sort of scaffold help to show him a cause and effect of, if you pick this picture or card, or if you so if you pick this picture or card, then you're going to get something out of it. So it's a cause and effect. If you do this, you get that. And that's kind of where I start. And that might be a very, very low level to start with. But eventually you can branch out from just running your fingers up and down the air vent. Maybe he likes it because of how it feels. So I might introduce then other textures. What about this one? Do you want to feel this one? And see if he continues to touch that kind of a texture. If he does, maybe it's motivating. I might add that into the choice mix. Or if he doesn't, I might still add it into the choice mix, because now I know it's a strong deterrent to not do that. So to know the difference between you can't just choose a picture, you have to choose the appropriate one. So what is the cause and effect, and how do you help a child get to the point where they tell you what it is that they want in the most appropriate format that they're able to. So it could be through pictures, it could be through sign, it could be through speech generating device, it could be vocally, it could be verbally, there's so many different ways that we communicate. Let's make sure that's appropriate for that child. So that kind of goes in a little bit of a tangent in terms of play, but that's what I mean about starting where a child is at, where I take what it is that they're interested in, fixated on, all of that, and I try to expand their world beyond that, but I start there. Does that hopefully answer?
Yeah. So I just wanted to share some comments that were coming in. So Shakira says, Erin taught me to use play to teach hard concepts. And I find my students learning without realizing that they're actually doing challenging stuff. Another parent says they play Connect for I Spy and 3-step direction. Lenore says, my son really enjoys playing Jenga. He gets stimulated by making the blocks fall.
That is fun. There's also, I think, an app version of Jenga, which is kind of also fun. It doesn't give you the full effect of falling, but it does give you actually some vibration on your device when you play Jenga on a device too. That's great, Christine. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to share actually an example of a matching game. This is Jane's son. That I was working with, and he's being a little bit silly, but we'll talk about it. Okay, who's gonna start, you or me? Who's gonna start? You? Okay, pick 2. Put it back down, but you gotta turn it over. Pick another one. Put it down. Okay, who's gonna start? You? Okay, so in this beginning of it, sorry, I stopped at the wrong part. What I'm giving him is a choice because kids always like to have that independence as well. Who's gonna start, him or me? Obviously, I'm expecting the answer that he's going to start. And that's what he chooses too. But it gives us the start of an interaction. It's a back and forth. How do you then appropriately have a conversation? Part of that is a back and forth. And this reinforces that. The cards that we're using right now is on a piece of paper that has squares drawn on them. And it's to help him remember to put the card back down in the place that he found it. Because oftentimes when we just have the cards out on the table, our children have a difficult time with organization. They put it back in the same spot. And so that's what we're looking at training there. For me, who's gonna start? You? Okay, take 2. Put it back down. But you gotta turn it over. Pick another one. Put it down. Put it down. Is it a match? So I ask him to gain some language out of him, is it a match? With some of the children that I work with, sometimes that's what I want all the time is I want a consistent yes, or I want a consistent no. So I might manipulate the game a little bit first just to make sure that they're always getting matches or whatever it might be. But to ask the question then, is it a match? Part of comprehension. Can he answer yes, no questions? Oops. Oh my goodness. Put it down. Okay. Is it a match? It is. What did you match? What is this? Airplanes. 2 airplanes. So asking him, what is it? Building vocabulary through matching is something that you can do. Good job. There for you. Whose turn is it now? Try again. Whose turn is it now? Yes. So what I did is a lot of times children also might have difficulty with sharing. So turn taking is an important skill. So in this, I've asked him now, before he has a chance to do anything, whose turn is it? He says, and he knows he's silly, that it's his turn, but that's okay. I redirect him back to me and say, are you sure? And he then points to me, so he knows. But this is an important kind of just a life skill in general of how do you share airtime with somebody else? How do you share turn taking? How do you collaborate with other people when you're working in a group? And this is kind of a start of that as we teach kids later on in life. Okay, I'm gonna try this one. What did I get? Balloon. So even though it's my turn, I'm asking him to identify these objects for me, which is building their vocabulary. And what's that? Are those a match? No, they're not a match. And again, I'm asking that consistent question of, is this a match? Whose turn is it now? Me. Yes, you're right. What are you gonna pick? Yeah. Okay, put it down. And pick another one. So I don't know if you've noticed from the beginning of the video, when he put it down correctly the first time, but he kept it turned over without the picture showing. This time he remembered to turn them over and put them where he's supposed to put them, as using the squares as a marker. 2 balloons. Is it a match? Yes, nice job. Put it with your airplanes. Okay, whose turn is it? You. Yes. Okay. What did I get? What are they? 2 butterflies. Is it a match? Nice job. Who won? Who got more matches? You or me? Me. You did. How many matches did you get? 1, 2. How many matches did I get? 2. How many matches did I get? 1. Nice job. I won. You did. You can turn it off. So in this video, you know, we can also work on counting. How many matches did you get? What's a pair? Because for him right now, the challenge is you can see him thinking of, well, you have two cards, so maybe you have two, but I have one pair. So teaching kind of that distinction. So using visuals is something that I use a lot, and I use it in play, and I use it in most other things as well. But it's very, very helpful for cueing, for organizing, helping our children anticipate, teaching independence. I mean, Christine had talked about using a timer with Nathan to tell him that it was time to turn off the TV. So that could both be a visual and an audio timer, but it helps them anticipate what's going to happen next to transition to the next activity. I also use it to with cooking, with activities of daily living, like in here. Can they identify the different objects for me? So visuals in general are very, very helpful. Do you have any questions so far, Elaine or Christine, on any of this?
I'm just soaking it up.
Did you have any thoughts about that matching game? Let's go back there for a second.
Well, my thoughts are, I'm not clear on what his disability is, but the notion of matching is, you have to have a visual reference, but you also have to have some knowledge about what a match is. Mm-hmm. And then what are the things you are looking at, whether they are that thing that is called a match. So I was just observing his various skills.
Mm-hmm. He is typically developing, so he doesn't have a disability, and we were using him as an example to be able to show matching, but matching does not have to be strictly, let's just flip over these cards and you match them and then be done with the game. You can expand upon that if you wanted to, depending on what your intentionality is. Are you looking for the child to be able to match? Are you looking for them to be able to attend to a task for a longer period of time? Are you looking to expand their vocabulary? I don't often advocate for targeting too many targets or skills at one time, because it can be overwhelming and frustrating and you forget yourself what it is that you're working on. But yes, it's kind of more of an example of how then could you expand upon the typical game of matching that you might have in your cupboard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Christine, you are on mute.
Yes, I have to add as well that using visuals, I find it very important for Nathan to really guide him, because he wants to know what's next. He wants to know what's happening. He wants to have that independence. And a lot of times we choose for the children. Right. And we don't give them a chance to do that themselves. And so sometimes the meltdown and the behaviors is because as they develop, we forget that there are aspects of them, as I said earlier, that continues to develop in a typical way, and that they want to be independent. And so paying attention to that as we are doing games and as we're doing activities, and just that word intentional, just being intentional about what you want the activity to do becomes very important.
That's right. You just reminded me of a conversation I had with a friend of mine who actually has two daughters. And we were talking about playing, and we were talking about a particular game that I can't remember, but I had asked, I said, how do you know that your girls know this skill? He's like, well, I just expect them to know it. So I think sometimes we as adults forget too that our kids are learning that the information that we know is, we've had it for a while, but for them it's brand new, and we forget that sometimes. That we have to walk them through certain steps, even for typical developing children too. It's useful.
Yeah.
So Jane and I had discussed a lot about activities of daily living, and using visuals for activities of daily living are very effective, and they help a lot. What we're doing in this, and this is going to be a task of brushing his teeth. which, like I said before, he is a typical developing child, so he can do this. But what I start with is usually what I typically start with a child who's learning this skill, and then Jane usually takes over for the physical act of the skill. So I bring in the different objects. What do you need to be able to brush your teeth? We also tend to ask our parents first, how is it that you typically brush your teeth? And how is it that you're teaching your children to brush their teeth, or how do you do this in your household? Because it varies per household too. I might put water on my toothbrush first and before I put toothpaste on. Some people don't. Some people rinse out their toothbrush in a cup versus, I run mine right through the faucet, right? So the different variations matter. And when we sequence our tasks and teach it in therapies or in other settings, we want to be very aware that we're matching how it's typically done in their home. If this is not how you do it, then, and these are not the tools that you use for this particular task, then we won't use them either, because it becomes less meaningful in that sense. So for brushing our teeth, in this first video, I am having Jane's son identify the objects that are necessary to brush his teeth. In the second video, I am asking him to sequence how to brush his teeth. So this is using visuals, giving him an idea of what sequence steps to take. And then later on, we have a video of him following the visuals to actually brush his teeth too. And so this is what it kind of looks like. We're gonna talk about what we need to brush our teeth. We have a toothbrush, toothpaste, a regular brush, a washcloth, and a cup. What are the items we need to brush our teeth? Can you grab them? Perfect. Do we need a hairbrush to brush our teeth? No, that's silly. Do we need a washcloth to brush our teeth? No, we don't put that in our mouth. Do we need a cup to brush our teeth? No, sometimes we could, but we don't necessarily need to. These are great. Thank you. High five. Ooh, is that a high five? Open hand. Open hand. Nice job. Okay, we can. So in this, having him identify, what I've done first is to tell him what each object is. So that way we are on the same page of what these objects are called. And then to have him pull out the ones that are necessary. Now, for some families, it would be the cup is important, and maybe even the washcloth could be because maybe you wipe your mouth after. Depends on the number of steps that you want to incorporate into this particular task. Now, I'm strictly looking at just the act of brushing teeth. So for that, we were looking at a toothbrush and toothpaste, which he was able to identify. What did you notice at the end of that video, Elaine or Christine? What did I do at the end, and what did he do at the end of that?
So we have a Gwendolyn. You want to answer that? Did you see? We have some parent on the stream.
Oh, great.
Gwendolyn?
Gwendolyn. Yeah.
Gwendolyn? Mm-hmm.
I think you're on mute.
Yes, could you repeat the question?
I was asking, what did you notice at the end of this video? What did I do and what did he do? Did you notice anything in particular?
I noticed that he had a look of satisfaction, and you seem in some way to show some sort of compliment to him. That's what I noticed.
Absolutely. I gave praise. I think oftentimes we forget to give praise to our children when they do something right, because we just expect for them to do it right. Versus I think we correct more often their behavior or action, and we which is more of a negative than praising for the behavior we do expect. So giving him praise of, yes, you did this right, and asking for a high five in such it's a everyday kind of task, brushing our teeth. But you're right, he enjoyed it and he had fun in that, and you can see it, and you can see some self-confidence. So praise really does help build some of that self-confidence as well. But I also corrected him in his high five, because I do not want a closed fist high five.
Right.
But yes, great. So the next video is on, now I'm going to have him tell me how he brushes his teeth.
What's this one of?
Water in his toothbrush?
Yeah, rinsing it. But do you see anything on that toothbrush? What's that right there?
Toothpaste.
Toothpaste. So it might be already used toothbrush. What's he doing here?
Spitting.
Spitting. What's happening here?
Putting his toothpaste on.
Yeah, and then what's happening here?
Brushing his teeth.
Are you sure? Are you getting the toothbrush wet or dry?
Dry.
Dry? Are you sure? What's coming out of that faucet?
Water.
Water. So we're going to make our toothbrush wet.
So these cards are not quite in order yet. I'm having him identify what's happening in each card, and then giving him scaffolded choices if he gets it wrong, like that last one. Brushing our teeth. Well, no, because the toothbrush is underneath the faucet, so that's not the actual action. And then he says the toothbrush is getting dry. Well, it's not dry if it's underwater, so how then do we correct for that? So now he's going to
You need to
sequence
put
them.
these in order of what happens first, next, and last. So can you tell me, when we brush our teeth, what do we do first? Which picture?
Put your toothpaste on.
Okay, let's try it. Put it on. There. What do we do next?
Get your toothpaste wet.
Okay.
So Jean would note here too, do you see where my hand is positioned? What is it doing?
Are you holding down the paper?
I am.
I can't. Okay.
I am, yes.
Yeah.
Jane would note that as an OT, she would require that the kid hold down his own paper and pull off the cards with the other hand. It's bilateral use, for one. Can they do that? And so she looks at that aspect as an occupational therapist. And she's also looking at how that pinch, can you pull off the different pictures as well as put them where they're supposed to go. With this task, I have 5 pictures. It doesn't have to be 5, it could be 3, it could be 2, for all that matters. You start wherever that child is able to.
What happens next? Okay. What happens next? Getting our toothbrush wet.
We put it here.
We're missing one.
I don't have enough.
Are you sure?
So he said, we don't have enough. Now, this is very typical of children, where it's like they come to the end, but they can't figure out where they might have broken down in that sequence. So the visuals help with that. Can we figure out then where this other card goes? Because he knows that it doesn't go last. So his response is, you know, we just don't have enough. So we figure it out.
What happened? What about this guy? I like that you we're gonna put our toothpaste on our toothbrush, but sometimes we wet our toothbrush first. What would we do next after we wet our toothbrush? Then what would happen? Yeah, put your toothpaste on. Then what would happen? Do we brush our teeth? Do we clean our toothbrush, or do we spit?
brushing our teeth.
After we brush our teeth, what do we do next?
Spit.
Yeah. And after we spit, what do we do next?
Clean.
Yeah, we rinse our toothbrush. Nice job. So
part of this task is when he can go into the bathroom, he can brush his teeth and he does it perfectly. What I'm looking for is, can he tell me how he brushes his teeth, which is also part of a story then. Can he tell me a story in the correct order? Can you put in appropriate details where they are supposed to go? So this kind of a task helps reinforce that kind of a thinking and language pattern.
what do we do first?
Get your toothbrush wet.
And then what do we do?
Put your toothbrush down.
That's right. What do we do next?
Brush your teeth.
Yep. What do we do next?
Spit.
And then what do we do last?
Clean your toothbrush.
Nice job. High five. Awesome job.
And this time he did the high five correctly.
Correctly, yeah.
So what kind of thoughts do you have on this? Any follow-up thoughts or questions about this?
So Aldine asked, how do you get a child to do something without having to tell them twice?
It depends what you're asking them to do. Oftentimes, depending on the request, for one, I need to make sure that they're fully attending to me. When I ask for this request, I get down to their level. We're looking at each other. I give them a particular direction, and I might, if it's very important, only one direction at a time. Do this, then go ahead, and then see if they go and do it. Then they come back to you. Now do this, and then they come back to you. So when we're trying to give a direction, if we're distracted and other things are going on, then you can be very certain that that child is also distracted with everything else that's going on. And to get them to attend to you is the first thing. If they're not attending to you, they won't remember what you asked. Mm-hmm. And is the language that you're using language that they know? Are you using the words that they're familiar with? Because I think that also matters in how well a child will follow your directions.
Yeah. So I have a question. I'm sorry, Elaine. I have a question, but I wanted, Donald Dina says, Erin, do you recommend praise or token at the end of a task?
It depends. It depends on it depends on the motivation of the child, and it depends on what the task is. It depends on the entire circumstance of the activity. There are times that I use tokens, but I also always use praise. So use both, never exclusive to one versus the other. I know another therapist that she gives bonus points for coming into your seat correctly. Like if you come into our session and you get into your seat, you get a bonus point. Nice job for sitting down. I really like that you follow directions, and they get that token or that point in addition to your verbal praise.
Okay. Lenore says, first and then has always been a great tool for us.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So the question,
can you explain that? Because I don't know what you mean.
First then is, first you do this, then you get this. And how I generally teach that, if it is a challenging, well, I also like to do this in small bursts of time too, because I find that attention span of children are very, very short. So I give them a choice board. What do you want to work for? And they choose, okay, so you are going to work for this. This is the task. First this, and then you get the choice that you just chose. When we're done with this, then you get this, or after a certain amount of time, you then get this, or after you've completed 3, 5, whatever it might be, then you get this. That's a first den, the first den system.
What skill does that work on?
It works on a couple of things, actually. It gets them to self-confidence in choosing a choice, for one, because I'm using a choice board. So they get the independence of using a choice. It works on attention and focus. How long can you attend to a task with knowing that you're going to get something at the end? For us, when we work, we know we work throughout the whole week and we'll do it well because Friday we know comes the weekend, and maybe you give yourself a special treat on Friday, like, I don't know, ice cream or something like that, but you know it's coming. So for us, even then, first work, then ice cream. We do it for ourselves too. But same thing for children, is it works on that attention and motivation and focus.
Okay.
And then you can get them to work on the actual vocabulary of the pictures that you're working on too.
Mhm.
Lynn,
So
you have a question?
yes, I wanted to be reminded of the question that was asked about something to do with how do you communicate with a child so you don't have to tell them twice? Was that the question?
Yes,
I'm trying
yes,
to remember it.
yes.
Right. So I have to say that my response to that emotionally and mentally was, what are you making it mean when you have to tell the child something twice? Because in my experience, I have to tell adults things more than twice, many times. So yesterday, I think one of the presenters spoke about our own emotional space and how we are being in terms of our responsiveness to our children's skill sets or abilities. So my question to you is, should a parent expect never to or not to have to tell a child something twice or thrice or 4 times? And how do you cope?
Not at all. I say the directions. I give directions to my husband all the time because he forgets, which is fine. But we do that, and that's natural, and that's human, and we should expect that also from our children, because if we need directions more than once,
Yes.
should we expect then for them to get it on the first try just like that? No, not at all.
Yeah. So my support to that parent from a self-leader coach standpoint is, what do you make it mean when you have to tell your child something more than once? What emotion comes up for you? What's your attitude? What's your thinking? And how does that cause your relationship with the child? What's occurring? So be present to your own state of being in response to something you're questioning.
Absolutely, and I completely agree with that. And in my point was more of, maybe because of whatever distractions, if you have something very important and you're wanting to teach them to follow a direction,
sure,
yeah, maybe do some of these things. But you're right, you're absolutely right.
All right. So there, Orain says, wow, I'm really learning a lot from Mrs. Erin Mercer, and I'm making a lot of notes.
Oh, great.
So there are two things now I want to talk about. So we got into the habit of, I spoke earlier about how I learned to celebrate the small things that Nathan did. Sure. So, whoa, good job. High five. Now, everything he does, like every little thing. And I'm saying, why should I high five you because you wiped your nose? It's your nose. But he is constantly wanting, and he gets now into clapping himself. So if no one does that, he does that. But the other point that I wanted to make was with the choice board, because we use a choice board with him, and we used to give him a choice, yes or no. Well, we're using just a tool system, and Erin got him set up on a more expanded choice board. So what we found, he developed the practice of choosing and not looking. And then he doesn't want to do it because he didn't realize that he was choosing. And so I'd spoken to you about that, and you had given me some advice. You want to share a little bit more on that, Erin?
And before she gives the advice, can she explain what a choice board is?
Yes. I thought I had an example with me. Basically, here, what it is I use pictures because I find them highly motivating, but you'll do this. Stop share. It's on a piece of paper, and each box is a different picture of the choices that are highly motivating for that child. And in order to, I have them pick what it is that they want. It doesn't have to be a field of 6. It could be like Nathan, just a field of 2 or a 3 or whatever it might be. Whatever is most appropriate for that child. Some of them can handle more choices. Some of them can handle less choices. So giving them the option, they choose from it. That's a choice board. But for me, the choices are always the choices that I want them to choose from. So let's say I don't have access to YouTube, like Nathan doesn't have access to YouTube. I wouldn't add that to one of my choices here. It would be, you know, you can do TV, we can do book, we can go to bed, we can play a board game. Maybe those are our only choices. If it's not on the choice board, they don't have the option to choose it. But it is, for me, motivating things for that child. And that's a choice board.
Okay. Right. So you were answering the question about when they choose without looking and then decide that wasn't what they were choosing.
Yeah, I still give them a taste of what it is that they chose. Like, well, you chose this. This is the picture. So this is what it is. That's not what you want? Okay, well, you can make the choice again. But since you did choose this one, let's be on this for, you know, a certain amount of time, maybe for like 10 seconds, if they really, really hate it. And then have them re-choose again. So then they see cause and effect. Mm-hmm. Oh, I chose something. And that wasn't the choice that I wanted to make. So I had to still interact with it. I'm going to choose something different that I make sure that I know that I want to interact with. Sometimes it takes a couple of times, but I at least present it in front of them. Mm-hmm. And then, oh, do you want to make another choice? Okay, here's the other choices. Which one do you really want?
Okay.
All right.
So I wanted to share our last video that Jane and I had done together, and this is to finish out the sequence of him actually.
We're gonna talk.
Actually finishing, doing the task of brushing his teeth. So.
Pictures that we just made. So what do you do first? Are you sure?
So he is actually looking at the pictures.
What does this say that our first step is?
Brush your teeth.
Yeah, get your toothbrush wet, right? Mm-hmm. So why don't we do that first? We're gonna follow the pattern there, buddy. Yeah. Now what do you do? What's next?
Your toothpaste on. I do it with my teeth. See? I did it with my teeth.
Nice work. All right, let's see how you put that toothpaste on there. Oops. Pictures that we just.
So what she is looking at.
Put your toothpaste on.
Are you sure? Mm-hmm. What does this say that our first step is?
Brush your teeth.
Mm-hmm. So.
Sorry. Okay. So.
Put your toothpaste on. I can't do it with my arms. I do it with my teeth.
No, that's all right.
See, I did it with my teeth.
Nice work.
So what the occupational therapy would be looking at here is how well do they squeeze to put it onto their toothbrush. So they put the appropriate amount on, and then also how is he holding his toothbrush once he eventually gets to his actual toothbrushing, and where is he brushing is what a lot of occupational therapy looks at too in this particular task. Oops.
Toothpaste on.
Sorry.
I can't.
All right.
See?
Okay.
Good. Not too much, right? Nice work, kiddo. Right, now what should you do?
Brush your teeth.
Yeah.
I kind of confused because every time when I brush my teeth, my tongue gets toothpaste.
Oh, well. So maybe you can get rid of a little bit of it.
So what he is having a hard time with is that sometimes toothpaste tastes too strong. It has too much of a minty flavor. And so he doesn't always like that. So what they're doing is getting rid of some of that toothpaste.
There. How's that? See how we did that? We just took off a little bit. Now it's not too much for your tongue.
So problem solving.
Good job. I see you getting the back and the front.
So we're looking at how we don't want to just brush in one direction. We want to make sure that they're getting all around the different parts of the mouth. And so she's looking at how he turns that toothbrush to get to certain parts of that mouth.
I see you getting the bottom. Did you get the top? You sure? Okay. Is it my turn?
So when she asked, is it my turn? She says this is what happens in their normal nightly routine is he starts to brush and he gets into all the places that he can get into. She then asks him, is it my turn? So that she can help him do the rest to make sure it's all thorough. And she does this with therapy as well. So when she works with other students and clients, she does the same thing, same kinds of prompts.
You get a turn.
He doesn't want that this time.
Okay. So then I'm going to ask you, honey, I'm going to ask you to get your, hold on, I want you to get your top teeth back.
So he didn't want it. So now she's going to direct him to do more.
Here, can you get those guys? So you're going to have to turn your brush upside down. There you go, pumpkin. Good. That's a little trickier, isn't it? Good. Okay. Now what? But, okay. Now what do you do? Yeah.
So you saw he looked back at the cards of what is he supposed to be doing next. So visuals like this are very helpful in sequencing with activities of daily living, for cooking, for everything that it is that we do. But we have to set them up with what this means first. So sometimes our tasks take a lot longer than we want it to be. But again, with whatever it is that you're doing, what's the intentionality behind it? What is your end goal for this particular activity that you're using?
Okay. Then what do you do? That is awesome. Nice work. Bye, my man. Nice work.
So that is toothbrushing. And then we do this also for other activities too, like brushing your hair, taking a shower, using the toilet. So there are different things that we can do depending on the activity. So in general, no matter what it is, what activity that you're using, I think of always provide opportunities for your children to be independent in that task. It could be with scaffolded help. Do it and show it yourself. So model what it is that you want done in the way that you want it done versus just telling it to them. Listen to them and involve them in what it is that we're asking them to do. Like in that last video, Jane had asked, is it my turn? He said, no. That's okay. She listened to that. She didn't take the toothbrush and go, well, it is my turn now, and start to brush his teeth. And then give praise. And you've seen in all three videos, we do that. We give praise a lot. And Christine has even said to the point where she gives praise and Nathan is praising himself for a lot of his own tasks too, which is fantastic. So no matter what it is that you do in play, activities in general, whatever, intentionality and provide opportunities, model, listen, and praise. So, yeah, that was my basic.
So Itika says, I'm learning a lot. I have twin girls, and one of whom has a disability. They're 3 years old and can't walk, sit up, or walk. She moves around, so I give her praise whenever I ask her to do stuff, and she does it. These are some great ideas for me to try with them.
Oh, great. I'm so glad
that you have. Yeah. Yeah. So I am, any questions? We have some parents on the stream. Sasha, I see you're there. Any question?
And also,
no. Hey, Erin.
Hey.
Oh, There's a bad connection there. So while we're waiting, Galen says,
Hi,
She's back.
I'm really enjoying. Oh, the connection is bad. Oh dear.
Go ahead.
Sasha? Sasha? All right. So Galen Samuel says, my daughter don't like to brush her teeth. So we sing a song and I make up a song and she loves.
Yes, I'm here.
If she loves praise. That's what Galen says.
That's great. It's always going to be different for every child too. Nothing, I mean, all of our children are very much individual. So what works for one child may not work for another child, but it could work for a different child. So I think flexibility is huge for us.
Yes. Did Sasha come back? I thought I heard somebody saying I'm back. No? Okay. Sasha, can you open your mic?
Yes, I am. I'm here now. Yes, I was just saying that I'm really enjoying the presentation, and some of those things that Erin was going through, I would have experienced when she had done the therapy with my daughter as well. So no questions as it is now. I'm just really enjoying what's happening and really taking a step back and looking at some of the things that I would have missed from last year and really trying to engage in some of those things at this point in time.
What would you say was the particular and peculiar thing that you learned from Erin that made a big difference for you and your child?
To be honest, there were several things. I remember some of the issues that I would have had as it relates to the communication aspect, getting her to express herself, and also, telling me some of the things that she would have understood from maybe reading a paragraph or reading a book. And when Erin had her, I noticed that she was really expressive, different from when she was just with me, but I realized that I was doing some things differently. And she opened up to Erin in such a way that I had to take a step back myself to say, what was I not doing? What was I doing wrong? And then I realized that the approach was different. And
in what
maybe
way?
it is that I had too much expectations.
Yes, Sasha, there's a teaching moment there now, you're in Erin's shoes. So what I'm supporting you to do is to share. So make yourself vulnerable, remember yesterday, and share the actual event. What was it that made a difference?
Also, Sasha, you are not doing it wrong. There's no such thing as doing it wrong.
Wrong, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just doing it differently.
Doing it differently.
Right. Right. To be honest, the questions that Erin would have asked her, instead of going maybe a full paragraph, before asking questions of understand, what is it that you understand from this sentence particularly, or what is it that you would have gathered that's happening with these particular persons? So specific questions that Erin would have asked, I realized that I wasn't doing that. And I was probably waiting for too long. So giving her maybe a paragraph to go through when it should have been, when I probably could have stopped in the middle and asked specific questions to see if she was following.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
stuff like that.
There's also the difference of asking an open-ended question versus a closed-ended question. So you give them the choices, helps them express, it helps give them the words to express what you're looking for, versus like an open-ended question might be, it's a lot more challenging to answer. And that could be part of it too, if I remember correctly.
And just so that our audience knows that Sasha's daughter is 16 and she's on the autism spectrum.
Yes, thank you, Christine.
That's all I got for today, for now.
So as I say to you, Erin,
Excellent
all the
presentation.
time. Thank you, Erin. So as I say to you, Erin, all the time, Erin usually say, oh, but nobody asks a lot of questions. I said, because a lot of what you share is so different from what people are accustomed to, that the questions come after. So when they come, I'll send them to you.
That's fine.
So we ask, or, participants, you have our email address, raisingspecialneeds@gmail.com. Any questions that you have from any of the presenters, just let us know who the presenters are. And before Elaine does her thank you to Erin, I just remembered that one of the questions that came from Monday, when Karen did the piece on re-imaging and reclaiming your network. I don't quite remember.
Your network and your net worth.
Your network. Thank you.
Yes,
Somebody
yes.
asked the question based on how she spoke, whether hairdressers and barbers should have social responsibility to their clients. And so Corinne's answer is yes, that because they sit behind the chair, they're able to see, for instance, she says in Connecticut, where she is, that all hairdressers and barbers have signed on to the trauma, the whole work against trauma and abuse in relationship. And so they have a responsibility, if they're sitting in the chair and they see trauma to the head or to the body that looks like it might be domestic, to say something to the client. And if the client is not willing to go forward, they have a duty to report it. So she says, yes, they're part of the community. And so as service to the community and as caring for the community, that they carry a social responsibility component.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so any more questions, any more comments, or are we getting ready to thank Erin and move on?
This is also just a very high level overview of like what it touches the tip of the iceberg of a lot of the things that speech pathologists do and occupational therapists do. So just note that.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you, Erin. Very instructive presentation. I have to say that one of the things that I have found marvelous is the way that I have this running comment sheet at the bottom of my screen that's showing me what you're saying so I can read. I really like that. So
closed captioning.
Yes, we were trying to activate it.
I would like to know how you do that so that when I'm doing my presentations in other locations, because I think some persons read more than they hear.
Absolutely.
And so in a PowerPoint presentation, it's a very, very useful support.
When you
and then there are also people who are deaf, and so it is part of accessibility.
Yes, yes.
When you go into the presentation mode on a PowerPoint, it gives you, there's an option to add closed captioning when you're in that presentation mode. If you're not in it and you're just in the, like what you initially saw in mine,
yes,
you won't see that.
Okay.
So presentation mode, you will see it.
I learned something. Thank you.
No problem.
Apply.
I don't know if it applies to Google Slides, but it does PowerPoint.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, thank you, Erin. And thank you for your continuing support and your association with the Nathan Ebanks Foundation and your willingness to always be a part of our conferences, seminars, summits, and just being accessible to pass on your knowledge and your wisdom as we all want to expand our capacities.
Sure,
thank you. Truly appreciate you.
Thank you for letting me be a part of your journey.
Yes,
great.
Thank you. Right, so we're moving along in our summit today. And as I had indicated to you earlier on, we're going to be having a presentation on the use of garden therapy. And our presenter for that is Lorraine Hope, who is a founder and executive director for Garden for Hope. And I'm looking to see if she's up on our
Yes, she
screen. If
is.
not,
She
yes,
is.
she is. Okay,
Mhm.
I'm not seeing her. So would you welcome her for me, Christine, please?
Sure. Lorraine, I see her in the participants. Lorraine, are you hearing us?
Can we check if she has unmuted her?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Here
We're
she
here.
is.
She's here. We're here. Can you hear me?
I need to see you.
Hello.
I need to see you.
Oh, you can't see us?
No, I
No.
can't see you yet.
Let me see the
So
camera.
can you activate your video, please?
Let me try.
Yes, activate
Start
your
video.
video.
Okay, it's saying allow Zoom to access your camera from device menu. Camera.
Oh, yeah, you got to choose that option.
So what do I need to do here?
You're going to have to go out and come back in. So when you go out and you're coming back in, you wait on that option and then you choose it and then you come back in.
So go back out to the main, because you have your camera turned off.
And so while we wait on the re-entry of Lori, Charmaine Miller says, great tips, Erin, thank you. Donaldina Francis says, nice seeing you, Sasha, is Sonia. Charmaine Miller says, thanks, Erin. Lorna Dawson says, thank you, Erin. And Akita said, thank you, Erin. And Dacian Fraser said, thank you, Erin, very informative.
Okay.
And so Shakira says, thank you, Erin, for a powerful presentation. And I just have to tell the audience that anywhere Erin turns up, Shakira turns up, because Shakira has been mentored by Erin. And she is doing so well in her space and in her classrooms and with her students.
Awesome. So we want to remind our friends, I'm looking for my bits of paper here, Christine, to remind us what is on the agenda for tomorrow. Do you have yours with you? Because I seem to have misplaced.
Sure.
Yes.
So just to put things into perspective, on Monday, we started with talking about self-leadership. Tuesday, we talk about reclaiming our families. Today, we talk about embracing the gift of our children. And tomorrow, December 3, is the United Nations International Day for Persons with Disabilities. And the theme for that is a global observation of disability. And the theme for that is building back better towards a disability inclusive, accessible, and sustainable post-COVID-19. So tomorrow we're going to start off by having just follow up to questions and, that we may not get to today. And then we're going to have a very exciting panel where we're going to have a parent expert roundtable to talk about what's going on in our communities and what we need to see in our communities. And as you've heard right throughout the summit, we have made the point that if societies and governments and organizations don't know you exist, there will be no programs for your children. If you are not articulating the needs that you have and you are not bringing it to the attention of those who are designing, creating, providing services, there will be no support for your children. And so this is really geared towards building your voice as an advocate. And we shared that you're your child's best advocate, but you also strengthen the support when you are also advocating for others. And so tomorrow is going to be an exciting day around that.
Certainly looking forward to that, Christine. I see Lorraine is ready to go. So we want to reintroduce our Garden for Hope expert on her mission to bring joy, fellowship, and therapeutic benefits of gardening to persons with disabilities and the homebound or those with a disabling condition. Lorianne Hope, welcome. We're not hearing you. Can you unmute your mic, please? Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, we'll get this. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for asking our organization to be here today to present our form of joy, bringing gardening therapy to individuals. I am Lori Hope. I am the founder of Gardens for Hope. And I come to doing this after about 25 years in special ed, 10 of which was a teacher for students with profound disabilities. And I always had gardens in my classrooms. And also on our board is my friend and colleague, Noelia Hernandez.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Noelia Hernandez, and I'm a volunteer for Gardens for Hope. And I'm also on the board, as Lori mentioned. And I'm also a mother of 2 little girls, ages 5 and 7. And my 7-year-old is my daughter that has disabilities. And in my line of work, my professional work, I work for the State Department of Education in special ed, but I'm also a mother and an advocate. And gardening is something that my child, who has been nonverbal, and as we practice or she gets her therapy for speaking, it is something that it just touches her. She touches the plants, and there's something that about the plants that works when we do provide that type of therapy for her. So this is something that I'm very passionate
Thank you
about.
and welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So as we were saying, the Gardens for Hope not only provides recreation. Yesterday when I was listening to the parents speak, and a couple of them mentioned, having something recreational and also purposeful for their children to do, regardless of their levels of abilities. And gardening provides that on a lot of different levels. So not only does it provide recreation, and this is part of the physical and emotional benefits of gardening and horticultural therapy, is it also provides cognitive benefits, life skills benefits. You have to think through the process. You have to use your hands. There has to be hand-eye coordination. What we're going to do today is we're going to kind of show you how we do it when we go out to the homes. So as we talk a little bit today about gardening therapy, horticultural therapy, we're going to build a couple of container gardens, and we're going to do it really quickly today. We normally do this over an hour or so, building a relationship with the individual wherever we go. We go to their home, their living centers, their schools, wherever they need us. We go to them and we bring everything. We are a 501c3. So we fund and we bring everything, teaching them about gardening, but also developing companionship. And that's where we look at companion gardening. We can go back again. If we're going to do vegetable gardens, we go back every week, because developing relationships is the best type of planting and growing we can do on this planet. Yeah. And there are a lot of individuals with disabilities who just are not getting that companionship and that friendship, because a lot of them are homebound, or they just want a garden, but they can't get out to the community garden. Right. And there's a few things, it's just so empowering. You put your hands in the soil, start from nothing, and then harvest that several weeks later. So while we talk, we brought a couple of our containers here. And so Noelia.
Yeah, so today we're going to demonstrate how to plant and create 2 different containers. I'm going to do a flower garden one, and Lori is going to do a plant succulent garden. And so as she demonstrated, we have some pots with soil already inside them. We have a few plants right here.
I'm going to interrupt you a minute to just ask you if you can tilt the camera so that we can see more of the containers.
Okay.
Just see if we can get it
there.
Right.
Let me see if I can bring it back,
because we're not seeing the containers as clear. Much better. Much better. Right?
There you go.
Yes.
Is that better? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So we're going
to we've added a little soil to this already.
It's right here.
You want to do a base of some soil before you start? Yeah.
Okay. And so we'll go ahead, and if you have any containers or you want to join us and do it at the same time, then let's go ahead. So let's go ahead and start, Lori. So we'll gather up our materials. They're all right here. So let's get started.
Okay. So if you're going to do a garden where it's going to be in the middle of your table, then you'll want to work from the center out. If your container is going to go up against the wall, like a wall display, then you're going to start from the back of your pot and work forward. And why we're doing that is you want to start with the largest. So you can also use gardening very much as an academic skill, because now you're going to talk about with your child, what are our largest plants? What's the next level? And then what's the smallest plants? So you can start at that level. So now you're talking about comparing plants. Which ones have flowers? Which ones don't? What color are these flowers and such? That's how I would incorporate gardening as part of the classroom. It's fun to just garden, but it's even more fun to allow the student to talk about the plants, talk about the gardens, the same thing that all gardeners do. We all talk about, I think, I'm going to start with my largest plant, my yellow succulent, and I'm going to start in the middle for mine. How about you, Noelia?
I think I'll start with this big geranium and put it right in the middle.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful. And my flowers are yellow. And what color are yours?
Red.
Very good. They are red. Good choice. Okay, so now when you're going to take these out of the pot, and here now we have some tactile and use of our hands and the muscle groups in the arms and in the hands. So I want you to very gently rest the pot in one hand and squish. So you're going to use these muscles now, right? And we're going to squish the sides of this pot to release the soil from the sides of the pot where the roots have grown to it. Hold the plant, tilt, and it'll pop right out. Now hold on to that plant. You don't want to drop it. So they're going to have to very gently learn how, and they're going to learn how much is too much. Now, if the student or the child accidentally breaks off part of the plant, it's all right. Happens to every gardener. So you can always get another plant. And then we're just going to place that puppy right on top of the soil. Make him stand up there. Perfect. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and go with the next level plant. And while we do, I'm going to talk a little bit about the therapy. So we're going to start putting this together. We're going to do a general layout. So you can have the student do that as well, and removing the plants. And, you know, at New York University Hospital, they actually have done studies to see that when people are put into a plant room, so a room full of plants, and they just have loungers in there, they actually find that the cortisol level drops, thereby making you physically healthier. And a lot of hospitals now have green rooms, as they call them, for nurses and doctors to go into to feel the relaxation that you get from plants. So there's this natural relationship that people have with plants and planting, and not only just the physical work that it comes into making a garden, but the emotional well-being, the mood shift. Without the use of medication, we can just shift our mood by being around plants. Been proven time and again. Anxiety as well. In today's world, we are bombarded with social media and TV and bad news coming at us. But when you sit with a simple container with some soil and some plants, you're living in the moment, and you're living in a natural moment. And because of that, it releases that stress. And there's absolutely been research indicating that it does shift the mood and the cortisol level.
And speaking of stress, since we currently are under home orders where we live right now, we have a curfew also, you know, we're all homebound right now. So it's one of the greatest activities to be doing at home, to be able to provide that relief from that anxiety and that stress. And it just focuses you, and it just calms you as you kind of create this garden and this whole arrangement. It's a little difficult when you have little ones to create one of the pots. So sometimes you have to help the little ones with the whole creation of it, because they're more about playing, feeling the soil, and kind of plucking. You know, my daughter plucks all the leaves. And so if I turn around and don't supervise her, I'll come back to find a bald plant. So it's, you know how she is. And so it's always, you know, and it's just her just being, you know, just touching the plant. And here we go. We're trying to get this together so that by the time we end the call, you have a beautiful little potted plant.
Now you notice the other benefit to gardening is there really is a hand-eye coordination, right? So they have to look at the plant, they have to tamp it into place. So there's all these different muscles working. And like mine, he keeps falling over, but that's okay, because a lot of gardening is learning through error. And the other discussions that come that I found came working with children with plants is down the road when some plants were growing and some plants didn't make it. And the reality that not everything we do, we have power over. That, you know, it happens to everybody. And plants have a life cycle, just like people have a life cycle. And the understanding, so the nice thing about gardening is when the plant dies, you can simply put another plant in its place. So it's not the end of the world. And teaching kids that too. And sometimes they overwater it, they might drown it. It's a life lesson. But instead of just telling them that, it's the questions that go with it for the life skills. What do you think happened? What do you think happened? Let's talk about it. You know, and then they'll talk, and if they don't know, then you kind of show how much water is in there, or they didn't water it at all. And then learning from that. The way farmers have been learning about gardening since the beginning of time. How much is too much? And then using that information and then applying it to other things in life. How much is too much? And when do you need to pull back a little? And then when they have it done, as Noelle is doing a beautiful job here.
And it's a really nice activity. You know, once if you either get a little container, or you actually go outside and you do the planting. Lori's right. I think my daughters have killed most of the plants. Most of our succulents are dead because the little one always wants to water them every day, twice a day, 3 times a day. Mommy, can we go water these right now? No, right now. And so I've gone ahead and have these little containers to go ahead and see, no, this is how much water you're going to use today. If you're going to water it 3 times a day. The weekends are hard for me because she wants to water the plant morning, mid-afternoon, and evening. Once she found out that the plants grew with the sun and the water, that was their food, quote unquote, right? So she just wanted to water the plant to make it grow bigger and bigger. And I said, no, you have to be patient. So, you know, planting and working with the children in the garden, you know, gives them something to look forward to. It just calms them down, and it teaches them about, like Lori said, you know what, you can't water that every day. It's one of the nicest things to do with my daughters. I mean, we really like it, even though we've killed so many plants.
And it really is a rather inexpensive recreational activity you can do with your children. Really, you need plants, soil, a container, and you can have the best conversation. So the other part that people are getting out of it, and especially people with disabilities, but also we work with veterans, we work with the elderly and such, is the socialization. So gardening provides a very positive socialization benefit. Language skills. Look at how much we've been talking back and forth about the plants and where should I put this and where should I do that. So you have the language skills, communication skills, being able to talk about what you're doing and where you want to put plants. And isn't that what it's all about? Bringing people together over something so simple and so joyful. And so we say we plant for today because we have faith in tomorrow, that we're going to be around tomorrow and the plant's going to be around tomorrow, and we're going to have a purpose to what we're going to do. Nothing else. I'm going to work with my plants. And I have been a gardener my whole life. My grandfather was a farmer and taught me the best part of your day is having your hands in the dirt It is such a grounding experience.
Mhm.
And I know Noelia has had that same experience with her
Same
children.
thing, you know, I grew up on a farm, and so my father always used to take us back out to the garden. My first memories as a child is walking through the gardens, eating the vegetables, watering, helping water. And so I know that that is something I wanted to keep with my daughters, but at the same time, it has a different meaning, especially for my daughter who didn't speak. And trying to figure out different ways to calm her down, because she also has some sensory issues. So that was one of the things that really helped. And I figured this would be something that she could use to focus her as I start talking to her and try to work with her. Or, you know, she logs in right now because we receive every service through Zoom. So she's distracted. And so the plant by the computer as she's doing one of the services, really, you know, she's just right there. Okay, yeah, sure. And so that's it does really help her focus though.
So we do have our website that people can also see what Gardens for Hope is doing. Unfortunately, we did have to pull back with the pandemic, so we haven't really been able to provide the service. But as soon as you know, it lifts and we're safe to go back out to homes and living centers and such, we will be there. But you can people can follow us on our website at gardensforhope.org. And we also have our Facebook site, which is at Gardens for Hope.
We have a lot of samples on the website and the social media, so that if anybody, even though we're not able to get out, people could see what is available to create their own pots and their own little gardens at home. And not have to wait for us, right? That was the point of being on this conference.
Yes.
Is we have all those instructions and everything that are available for free.
But it is important to keep talking, to
Yeah.
keep the communication, because that's what gardening brings is, and when we show up, we immediately have something in common. And when you have something in common, then you have a friend and you have a companion and somebody that they're going to ask, how are those plants doing? And gives you such a sense of hopefulness and joy. And I think that's something that most people are looking for.
Thank you.
So thank you so
Wow.
much. Are there any
Thank you for
questions?
having us.
Thank you. We're
Wow.
just thrilled we've been able to do our presentation for you.
Yes. So when I heard about Lori, because to talk again about the social connection, Robin, who was on yesterday, was who connected me to Lori and to Dr. Ray. And I was really fascinated by the concept, because one of the areas that we look at for individuals with disabilities is how do we provide them with opportunity to be part, to contribute back to their community. And when I thought about even Nathan, and when I spoke to Lori and she shared that we could actually do a vegetable garden in a basket at home, where Nathan could be part of that process, could be part of the tending process, could be part of the harvesting process. I thought that is just phenomenal, because he would see himself contributing instead of just being and not getting that opportunity. He would see himself contributing to the family plate when we're eating from that particular lot of stuff. And so it really opened my mind about what are some of the ways that I could work with Nathan to begin to contribute more to his community, which is also something that Erin has spoken to me about, getting into the practice. And it doesn't matter the level of disability the child has, whether it's physical, cognitive, language-based, it doesn't matter, that there is an opportunity for that individual to contribute in some way. And I was very excited to see what you guys are about. And I will definitely be going to your website, because you have certainly tickled my interest in that area.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yes, I was just absolutely enthralled. And I wondered, Laurie, what kind of stories you have about persons that you have worked with, in particular children with disabilities. Could you share a story with us about, what you observed, the difference that it made, the connection that occurred?
Absolutely. For a number of years, close to 10 years, I was a special day class teacher. And like I said, we always had gardens, and sometimes we put together container gardens. But come spring, we always planted a vegetable garden. And I had them on raised beds behind the classroom because a number of my students were in wheelchairs or had difficulties getting down to the ground. So I always had raised beds. And there was this little girl, and actually she had a very difficult time speaking. So she used a lot of devices and such, and buttons, and her mother actually didn't think that she could be involved in it because she had difficult time with her hands and speaking. And I was like, but you know what? The plant doesn't need a conversation, but that doesn't mean she can't control what we're doing. She has as much power as anybody else. All she has to do is push the button to where she wants me to go. So I will ask questions. You want it to go here? You want it to go there?
Right.
The power of choice that she had in just planting seeds, that all I did was move it around, and then she would hit her button as to where she wanted me to plant it and where she wanted the squash versus the tomatoes. And at the beginning, she wasn't that comfortable, but then, oh my goodness, when the seeds sprouted, the child saw the power of nature, that you don't necessarily have to speak. You don't even have to really see, because my children that couldn't see, they touched it and knew that they did that. And by the time school was out and they were measuring it, and oh, boy, did they want to come to school. That's the other thing that gardening does. If they don't want to come to school for the academics, they want to come to school for what they created. And it's growing and it's alive. And at the end of it, if you're there to tend it, you get to take the vegetables home and feed your family. There's nothing more powerful than the ability to feed your family. And she did. She took home tomatoes. She had like little peas that were picked off of the vine. And the way she lit up, and to watch the transformation of that child from a simple garden, planting a seed, watering it, watching it growing, and then be able to feed her family. And her mother said when she brought it home, they just cried with joy.
Wow. Yes, thank you.
Very simple, but it still sticks with me. And that was a long time ago. And I can, as I was talking, I could still see that child's face. It's just lovely. It made me feel so grateful to have been her teacher and to give her family that.
Very inspiring.
And now I'm retired. And so I've decided to spend my retirement doing the same thing.
Yes. Yes. And I'm sure, I mean, as I'm listening and observing, it's just a great idea for other persons to look at. It's a wonderful opportunity, for building relationships in communities, especially in Jamaica, where we have a lot of inner city communities that don't have a lot of grass or free ground, but the fact that you can do this in a container. And what I saw you have there looked like a real nice Jamaican wash pan. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you with us this evening on our parenting summit. Christine, do you have the link? Can you tell us what your website is, Lori? I don't think she's hearing me.
Okay. So we will share the next day after the summit, we send out an email to everyone who is registered, and whatever resource would have been uncovered during the event, we actually send that out to them. So I will certainly do that again tomorrow morning to provide that information. But a couple of the stuff were coming in, people were saying, wow, this was an interesting, love the idea of taking the garden to people who are at home. Other persons were saying they do gardening, but more vegetables, but it's a great idea to involve the children. And I just wanted to also share that there's a particular home in Western Jamaica that has a large population of children and young people with disabilities. And the Nathan Ebanks Foundation had provided support, training for the staff of that home in how to care for the children and the adults with disabilities in a way that honors who they are and that, you know, build their self-esteem. We were working on communication and a number of skills. And Erin was one of the persons who actually was part of that project. And as well as we had an occupational therapist from India who was there. And one of the things we saw was that these individuals were in the home every day, not engaged, not doing much. And so the recommendation was made for them to start a farm. We call it farm instead of garden and grow produce and so on. I went back a year later and it was a different community. And when I checked in with the special ed teacher who was on the property, she said, I mean, they got up every morning, made their beds, and they couldn't wait to get in the garden. And she said they were very excited when because they were now eating from the crops. And so, you know, so those are some great ways because there are a lot of children who are not in school at all. And as we would have learned today, there is a need for us to be more intentional around how we engage the children, whether they're at school or at home. I also have to share that the school Nathan was in Jamaica has what we call a 4-H club that deals with outdoors and gardening. And he looked forward to the club on a Monday because he uses a wheelchair, but he is on the ground in the dirt, planting his seed, and he enjoys that, you know, brings home the dirt stain, but he enjoys being part of that. And so we just really want to encourage parents, especially in this time, to get creative with how we are embracing the gift that is our child.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Are there any questions coming up, Christine, or any comments before we thank Lori and wish her a wonderful evening?
No, there are none right now. Just people making comments. It's a new area, and so people being interested in what they've learned so far.
Yes. So Lori and partner, thank you so much for being with us. We certainly enjoyed this presentation. And as Christine said, it's a presentation that can make a tremendous difference once we apply, as you have shown us. Very simple, very engaging, but very, very rewarding. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening. Yes.
Thank you. You too. Thank you so much.
Yes. So Christine, we're moving into the final minutes of today, and there are a few housekeeping strategies that we need to manage. I wanted to run through the agenda for tomorrow, but I also wanted, is it today that we're giving out some prizes?
Yes, it's today. It's today.
And that excites you, doesn't it?
Very much. I love prizes.
Okay, so what do we have?
So we're going to start with a free coaching session with me. And so the volunteers that we have, and yesterday I read their names, and we have a bunch from Jamaica. We have Keita, and Shakira has been on almost everything, and Nuneka, who have been just working with everybody to look at who have been the most engaging, who has been here every day, who asks questions, and use that to determine the level of interest in the area. And so they selected the volunteers to just beat them up, not me, is what I'm saying. So the free coaching session with me is Leonard. So Leonard, and I'm asking my volunteers, just get all of Leonard's particulars so that we can follow up. But Leonard has won the free coaching session with me. The free coaching session with you, Elaine, has been won by Faithlyn Miles.
Well, congratulations, Faithlyn. Looking forward to meeting you.
It's Faithlyn.
Yes.
The masterclass with Full Circle, that's 1 year of training in any area of interest, is Kimberly Hanley Bellow. So Kimberly, you are the proud winner of the free masterclass from Full Circle Systems, Inc. for Raising Nathan, Every Life Has a Story, the copy of my first book published in 2015. The winner of that is, and you know, it's really not so nice without the drum roll, but anyway, the winner of that, and just so that people know, let me read a review. You can read the reviews on Amazon. Every Life As a Story is an extraordinary book that induces multiple emotions and thoughts from love and laughter. It is with tremendous pride and candor that I share my reflections regarding my experience with your book, Christine. I truly can say Raising Nathan, Every Life Has a Story is an extraordinary book that will induce multiple emotions and thoughts from love, laughter, loss, victory, and hope. The author takes her reader on an intimate journey into her life, which gives voice, story, and power to families of children with disabilities. This is the first book to offer a detailed examination of a family's life who chose to courageously love and defy the odds. The account of the journey are raw, real, and vivid. Raising Nathan, Every Life As a Story is an essential read and belongs on the desk and nightstands of every person who desires to know more about the journey of transcending obstacles and choosing to live a life of possibilities. I am deeply thankful for the beauty and truth in this story. May this book be a source of inspiration and enlarge our hearts' capacity for valuing the dynamics of difference and the voice of hope. And this is a book review that was done by Center Green, who you met yesterday.
Yeah, you know, Christine, one of the things I want to point out to our participants and partners is that what is special about this book, it's not simply a story, it's a tool. Because it has content which points you to various resources and facilities worldwide. It also teaches you about some of the things that you need to think about or choose that you might never have thought about if somebody with the experience didn't say it to you. So that, as a reader, that's one of the things that I found very valuable. It's a resource book, not just simply a storybook.
Thank you for that. So the proud winner of Raising Nathan, Every Life Has a Story is Vonetta Spence. So Vonetta, I miss the live sessions because then you'd be hearing the screaming and the clapping and the dancing, but I'm imagining it in my head. So exploring art therapy. One complimentary art therapy session for a family of 3 or 4 persons, or one complimentary art therapy session for a child. And the proud winner is Aldine Providence. You are the proud winner of this particular gift. So we have as well coaching session with Patrice, and that was Melanie from Jamaica. And we will reach out in touch with you, Melanie. And we have a couple of prizes left. We have a coaching session with Erin, and we have coaching session with Corinne. But we will get to those tomorrow. So you have to come back. We're not giving away everything today.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So tomorrow is our roundtable day, is it not? We will be having our panel, and the topic for tomorrow will be Building Back Better toward a disability inclusive, accessible, and sustainable post-COVID-19 world. And I think, Christine, our timing is impeccable because we're right in the period that UNESCO marks as the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, where they have a week-long program from November 25th to December 3rd, and it's under the same theme. So we look forward to being a part of that collaboration, as our event ties in very naturally with the worldwide marking of this important time.
Yes.
Tomorrow's panel will be Christine Ebanks, Center Green, who presented yesterday, as well as Dr. Kathleen Van Antwerp, Robin Ryan, Sasha Hill, who is here with us now, Lorraine Mitchell Smith, Dr. Karen Dunkley, our resource and partner from the Jamaica Northeast Diaspora, Beverly LeBlanc from Dominica, Sasha, as I said, and Dr. Glenville Bird from Nevis. So we look forward to our panel conversation as we will be wrapping up our parenting summit. Absolutely first, I don't remember there being something like this before. And as I said to Christine, we have to choose whether and with what frequency something like this will be happening, but certainly a first of its kind globally.
Yes, thank you for that. And on that, Monique Shibe said, thank you. Very touching indeed. I can relate to some of your story in many ways. Thank you for igniting that spirit of resilience. So thank you for that kind word of encouragement. And we have a few minutes. And so, we just want to look at some questions that might be there.
And while we're looking and waiting on the questions, we simply want to remind all our participants to go to our website, NEF Jamaica, or Raising Special Needs. And we're looking forward to your contribution in purchasing the books. In fact, Christine, I found I got this most beautiful face mask. I thought I put it on the table, but tomorrow I'm going to be wearing my Raising Special Needs face mask because I think that needs to be on the website so that people can purchase.
Yes, and it should be. And I have to thank Styles by Nuneko, who called me up to say, listen, you need to raise some money for your foundation. So I am preparing this as a product that you can make available. So thank you for that, because I didn't remember either.
Yes. I'll be demonstrating tomorrow for sure.
Yes. But so far I'm looking through the chat, and it is just really a lot of the affirmation of others, just talking about how vital the information is to them and how much they're able to learn and to go back and practice. And I just really have to give a shout out to the team that is working, because each day I look at the chat gets better and better, because I just saw flashing bells saying congratulations to all the winners. So that's something new that was just created. So it's a real dynamite team, and tomorrow I will just call out their names again. I know they're a little shy, but the level of energy that they have brought to this. And I want to share, Niv, I'm going to ask your permission after the fact to just share. She wrote to me last night, who is one of our volunteers. I don't remember, where which country she's from, but she has just brought tremendous energy to the team. So she said, Christine, I know we're only halfway through the summit, but I just want to thank you. This is our volunteer. I just want to thank you for this opportunity. I was able to interact with so many parents and learn about their experiences. When they shared what hurts their hearts and breaks their back, it really moved me. I am grateful for the NEF and the opportunities you have provided me to learn more about the disability space. So a part of our journey has always been that every life we touch and that touch us must leave us touched, moved, and inspired.
Yes.
And so I thank her very much for taking the time to share that with us. And it was really an encouragement for me last night.
Yes, and all of the persons who are benefiting, have benefited, see benefit. Your families and your communities are large. We really want you to pass it on. There's a beautiful song. Bob Marley and the Wailers, pass it on. I really am encouraging us to do that, because sometimes we find something good and we celebrate, but we kind of store it and that's not of a lot of benefit. So we really want to invite you. For example, why don't you like our Facebook page at NEF Jamaica and Raising Special Needs, because when you do that, it helps to promote the organization. It helps to put us out there in the social media marketplace. We also would love for you to go to Instagram pages at NEF Jamaica and Raising Special Needs and like us there. Share a little bit about what occurred for you during this parenting summit and help to broaden the benefit to our communities globally.
Yes, thank you for that. I also wanted to remind our participants of the offer that Melange Magazine and the Caribbean Disability Leaders Group has launched a program called Through My Eyes. And that program is intended to carry your story because it is the stories that change the world. And so we invite you, just link us at, you can send us an email at raisingspecialneeds@gmail.com, or you can send us, inbox us on our social media pages, and we would be happy to connect you to the group so that you too can share your story. And you know, I have to show you this book that I was talking to you about. When I showed it to Nathan, and it is his story and he knows that. And when I showed it to Nathan, Nathan looked at it and he looked at me and he indicated that don't look like me. I had to explain to him that the Future by Design, an amazing company that designed the illustration, that they explained that in order for children's book to reach the children's market, if it looks too much like an individual, it creates an issue. So they tend to represent. So the wheelchair represent him. This is his little dog, Shades. It's a little stuffed toy that he went everywhere with, and Shades, because Shades wear glasses. That's his communication device. Where am I? Communication device that's on his lap. So we felt that the story should capture the colors that are from the Jamaican colors of sand, sea, and sun. And so we wanted to truly represent him in other ways. So he has bought on to the story because he just enjoys seeing himself in the book. And so even if you do that for your own child and you use cartridge paper or construction paper like I had done when I first wrote the story 10 years ago, and just print out pictures and paste them in it. It really does something in helping to bolster your child's self-esteem to see themselves in a book. Do a home video with them as an activity if they love TV. Play it back on TV so that they see themselves. Nathan is in a lot of videos and a lot of programs because we do a lot of work. We recently did an endorsement project for UNICEF Jamaica. And every time it plays, because it is in the loop, he calls the whole household and we have to come and watch it again like it's the first time. But these are the ways that we boost the self-esteem. And so we really encourage you to go out there and get creative because you have the child you were supposed to get and your child has a parent that they were supposed to get.
Awesome. 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 So we really want to thank all our participants today, all of our volunteers, all of the persons who have worked assiduously to make this happen. And in particularly, we want to thank our presenters for today. Christine, thank you so much for that keynote presentation. We want to thank Erin, who continues to support us as our speech and language pathologist. And we want to thank, I'm trying to remember the name of her partner who worked with her, Jane Metz.
Jane Metz.
Yes, for supporting her, although she was not able to join us today. Certainly Gardens for Hope did pass on some hope today, and I am seeing where several of our parents and children will certainly be getting their hands into the soil and producing not just beautiful blooms for the future, but really great adventures for the kitchen and dining table. So
Elaine,
we want to,
may I interrupt you?
Yes.
I absolutely forgot. Thank you, Mrs. Gwendolyn Glasgow. So her husband, Hugh Gregory, was on yesterday and she's on today. And they are the proud new owners of How to Cope Raising a Child with Special Needs.
Thank you so
Ooh,
much, Gwendolyn.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. Woo!
you. Awesome. Yes.
Such a
So
pleasure.
it's a pleasure having you too. Thank you. And
Thank you.
Lorraine,
It's not only a pleasure, but a treasure. It's
yes,
not only a
a pleasure,
pleasure,
but a treasure.
but a treasure.
Thank you.
You.
You're
Thank
also
you.
welcome.
Right. So this is it. We get to say thank you to everyone who has joined us today and participated. We look forward to our final day tomorrow. The panel, as we said, in celebration of the UNESCO celebration of the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. We have a fulsome panel, lots to wrap up, and we look forward to your being available. Please pass on the word on your social media platforms. We expect everybody who has been a part of this to be on Facebook and WhatsApp, reminding people, sending the link, and passing it on. Thank you on behalf of Nathan Ebanks Foundation and Raising Special Needs, my co-host Christine Stapley Banks for today. I'm Elaine Wint, and thanking Ricardo Young, who is in the background controlling our audio and our presentation. God bless you all and have a wonderful evening. Good night.
Right.